And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bashing us, him.
Attention, roll call.
That's right, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time, and of course, you're with the Finest Unfiltered. It's Wednesday morning. It's Hump Day, and we got a great topic for you as always. So I hope this, starts making your ears ringing, and you have thoughts about this. And where is your head when it comes to this? So, good morning to the chat. A lot of active people in engagement. I'm sure affected by the vaccine mandate, or at least if you were retired at the time, maybe you put yourself in a position and said, hey, if I was still within the NYPD, what would I do? And or just working in any New York City agency, and you were forced to take a mandate while you worked the entire time during COVID. So Fauci pleads the fifth. Now, what I think is interesting about that, I think it's ironic, right? Here's somebody that ultimately during COVID with the lockdowns, and especially in New York City, was such an influential advisor on the federal level that it was almost that his influences were violating people's civil liberties. And I think it's quite interesting, right? That it was borderline violating constitutional rights. Actually, in my opinion, I'm sure many, his influences did violate civil rights and constitutional rights. And yet, when he had an opportunity to speak at Congress, he invoked his Fifth Amendment. I think that's kind of ironic. So let's get into this. Do you think that the NYPD is responsible for the vaccine mandate, or could they point blame at Fauci? In my opinion, I see Fauci as a federal advisor that was influential during COVID, and I think that ultimately it's the NYPD that's responsible for the vaccine mandate because they actually implemented that order. Maul and John, good morning. What are your thoughts, John? Let's jump into this. I can imagine we're going to get angry, John, today, and let's do this.
Oh boy, this episode's been a long time coming, huh? So, yeah, it's been a really frustrating. It's been a frustrating week. I think it's been a frustrating time since all this news broke about Fauci. But I think it's a conversation that absolutely needs to be had. 100%. Fauci lied. He lied about a lot of things. And he offered guidance. But there was still constitutional protections in place. There was still equal opportunity protections in place. New York State Human Rights Division laws was still in place. Religious accommodation request laws was still in place. The First Amendment was still in place. And, in my opinion, while Fauci's guidance was improper and made up and inaccurate, it was the NYPD in all their glory who decided, well, Fauci's saying this, so we're going to ignore all the rules of the CDC. We're going to ignore how we handle religious accommodation requests, how we handle medical accommodation requests. We're going to ignore the United States Constitution because Fauci and the mayor's office are giving us cover. Well, I got news for you, Sergeant, Lieutenant, Captain, Deputy Inspector, Chief, whatever the fuck you are at this point, right? Excuse me. I was trying not to curse in the 15 minutes, but it is what it is. I think it's just going to come out a lot.
It only took you 3.
Yeah. I was trying not to do that. Sorry. Apologize. But so like you think you have cover. It wasn't us. No, it wasn't us. It wasn't me. Dr. Tanya Meisenholder, then Deputy Commissioner of Equity and Inclusion. It wasn't her. She was just a commissioner. The order came from the mayor's office. I have her on record. I have her in numerous court testimonies testifying to that. I have the people denying the religious accommodation. It wasn't us. It was the mayor's office. It was like, no. Guess what? It was you. It was you. It was you that decided to throw the United States Constitution out the window. Now, do I blame every sergeant, every lieutenant, every captain? No. I blame the ones that decided that they were going to be vaccine salesmen and they were going to be COVID mandate stormtroopers. And that was a lot of people. And there was a lot of cops and detectives too that was, they were virtue signaling to the highest. This is going to get me my second grade or my first grade. There was a lot of those people out there, and so they were the good cops, according to de Blasio, according to all the leftist white women running the NYPD, and then according to Eric Adams. Those were the good cops, and so there was a lot of things that happened. Obviously, people lost their careers. I don't think that takes the place of people losing their lives. I don't think that takes the place of severely injuring people. And I don't think that takes the place of harming pregnant women. And I'm always pretty harsh about that time when I have conversations because, look, I got a lot of trauma from that time. I do. I mean, I wasn't allowed to eat in restaurants. My kids weren't allowed to go to school. My daughter, who's needs a lot of therapy, wasn't allowed to get therapy at that time. I was shunned from my church. I was shunned from my community. I was shunned from my profession because I told the truth, because I said, you guys are all taking that and you keep getting it. And you told me before this mandate came in place, the NYPD and all my doctors told me to not take it because my antibodies was so high. You said that I would have an adverse side effect and not to do that. And you reached into medical history. And so I'm always harsh with it, but I'm never really harsh when it comes to the women. I'm not. I think that the way that the mandates came in, they targeted women first. They went after female-dominated professions. First, they went for the nurses. And nobody said nothing. Then they went for the teachers and nobody said nothing. And then they came for us. And it was too late, right? Because they already set the precedent with the unions. And the reason that they went after the females first, female-dominated professions, is because women are more agreeable. Just is what it is. Women are more agreeable. Less chance that they're going to say, no, I'm not going to do this. And for me, regardless if I ever took it or not, it was irrelevant to me. I was never, ever forcing anyone to do it. I was never, especially women. And then especially elderly women, and then especially pregnant women. Who are the most vulnerable people in employment? Pregnant women. I mean, you could talk to women supervisors, women human resources throughout this country, whatever profession you're in, and they'll tell you that to be a woman at work is a hard thing because nobody wants you to be a supervisor as a woman because they look at you like, well, you're a young girl. More than likely at some point, as dedicated as you are, you're going to get married at some point and you're going to have kids and you're going to have different responsibilities and your priorities are going to change. Your priorities are going to change from putting this organization or this company first. And so we never really like promoting women and we don't like putting women in these positions. But at the same time, we had Dr. Tanya Meisenholder, and I continue to watch her on podcasts, and I have no idea how she doesn't hang her head in shame. But I continue to watch her on podcasts talking about employees and making them feel well and making them do things. How about pregnant cops who were told you're going to lose your livelihood? We don't care what your doctor said. We don't care any type of adverse side effect you may have. We don't care about any of your religious claims. We don't care about anything that you have to say. We don't care about any of it. You're pregnant with this baby. You're going to put this stuff in your body that doesn't work, and we know doesn't work, but you're going to do it, or you're going to go work at McDonald's. Good luck feeding your baby. Good luck keeping a roof over your head. Good luck doing any of this. We don't care. And, I just flash back to that time as I saved all of the documents from everything that the NYPD emailed, everything they had on the intranet, because I knew that I was going to be on the right side of history. I 100% knew it. I was like, I don't care what happens to me in this moment. I don't care if they throw me in jail. I don't care if they kill me. I will go down as right in history. And so I saved all the documents, and all the documents were amazing to me because I always think the funniest commercials are the pharmaceutical commercials that are put all over TV, right? You got the guy on a sailboat, and it's like they want to talk about, take this medicine and you could have an erection. And I'm like, what the hell does a guy alone on a sailboat need to have an erection for? Like, what does this commercial have to do with anything? And then immediately after the commercial, there is 10 minutes. I don't want to say 10 minutes. I'm exaggerating, but there is a long breath of all of the side effects that he could get from wanting to get a hard on alone on a sailboat while the sun is setting, right? Like there is a long list of side effects. And during that time, I remember saying to everybody, I was like, for the first time in history, here's this medical intervention that, and by the way, those warnings are required in America, right? Other countries don't even allow you to promote pharmaceutical products. And the only reason in this country that we do that is because that gives you the sign that this station or this network is controlled by Big Pharma. And we pay a lot of money for those commercials that no one picks up the phone and says, hey, yeah, I want that. Hey, yeah, I want to be that guy alone on the sailboat in the sunset and get a hard on, and then probably get all this other stuff that comes out of it, all these adverse side effects and all that. Yeah, I want that. Nobody does that. They make no money off that commercial. But they do, they spend a ton of money to advertise on those networks, and that's how you know who they control, right? That's the sign, right? Because it's unbelievable. But during that time, the NYPD, all of the stuff they put out, all of their myth versus fact, all of their questionnaires, all of their fact sheets around the COVID mandates and around COVID-19 there was no side effects. It was 100% effective. You were never getting it again. And there was zero side effects. And now we have Tony Fauci's private text messages. And that story is about to change. Sorry for my long-winded opening, but I gotta say, it's gonna be a tough episode to get through. But it needs to be had. And I know a lot of people are gonna get pissed off, and good. I hope you get pissed off, because I think where we're at now, I think we're in a worse spot than we were before COVID. And I think that if we don't start having these conversations, it's not enough to be sorry. It's not enough to be sorry for what you did. And it's fine. I forgive everybody. I do. If you're truly sorry, I'm good. We're good. I don't care. I don't care if you deny my religious accommodation. I don't care if you told me you wished I died. If you say you're sorry to me and you mean it, we're good. I don't care. We move on. But what are we doing to fix this? What are we doing to fix this? What are we doing to ensure that this never happens again? We have to go back in time, and we have to examine every single failure that happened. It's not pointing out individuals. It's not trying to embarrass people, because as a nation, as a generation, we all should be embarrassed. We should all be embarrassed by it. That's it. It's like it's nothing that I don't think anybody for the entire time could say that they're so proud of how they acted during that entire time. Whether it was in the beginning, the middle, or the end, there were things we all probably wish we could go back and change. Right? Myself included. I'm sure Marlon included. And yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty interesting conversation. And I'll try to keep the cursing to a minimum. Marlon, what's up, brother?
Yo, good morning, guys. Morning. I don't know what's going on with my internet these days. Real weird.
You got the Starlink. Eric infected you.
Yeah, if I had Starlink, it'd be running better than this now.
I got the upgrade, brother.
Weird. Yeah, a lot said there. Before I start, good morning, everyone. Good morning, guys in the chat. I see your comment there, Detective Nolan. I already have a case against the city, but New York City's courts apparently don't operate under the under the Constitution. So the rules don't apply here, that they do to the other parts of this country. But yeah, good morning to all you guys in there. John said a lot there, and John's right about he's right about a lot in there, about the why they chose to go after women first. And I keep saying that women are they have more empathy, right? So they knew that if they would scare women enough, that women would want the collectivist protection of the state, and they would push the scamdemic more. And they would, in addition to that, a lot of them would go home and then push it onto their families, push it onto their husbands. I keep saying, how many husbands got the jab because of their wives? I can guarantee you it was a good proportion of them, because all the women in my life were pushing that on me, and I had to push back and break it all down. So I think that was all deliberate, and we're going to be talking a lot about Fauci today, but keep in mind, Fauci is only the point man to the operation. All those people who were further down from Fauci, all the way down to your supervisor who is pushing you to take it, or should be equally blamed. Okay, because sure they may not have had enough facts, but the facts were out there, and what happened to their common sense? Because again, what's crazy about this right now is that what we're talking about, like pregnant women and the news that's come out with Fauci's text. But what's crazy about that is if you put two and two together and you looked at the whole scamdemic and you realize, wait a second, this scamdemic, you look at the virus and you thought, wait a second, this virus just came last year, supposedly, right? How is it that in a year and a half they already have a vaccine? In fact, actually, by December of 2020, they were already starting to talk about vaccines. Okay, so how is it they could have a vaccine ready so quickly and tested, and could safely implement it so quickly? It logically does make sense. So if they had simply followed logic, they'd have realized that they shouldn't have gone on. When you look at the law and the law in regards to mandates, it was illegal, but none of them did, and a lot of them just brushed it off and then forced you to go get the vax. Okay, so it's not just Fauci, and certainly in the NYPD, there are a lot of. This is this historically, this will
Dude,
go
you're
down as
breaking
one
up
of the
super bad, Mark.
dumbest, the dumbest strategic moves ever. Because
Yeah,
as
it's
I always
fuzzy.
say, if you're a general and you're facing two unknown outcomes, are you going to go all in one outcome? You don't know. They're both unknowns. You're not going to go all in one of them because again, they're unknowns. So why would you go all in into the vax when you don't know its consequences? You don't know its adverse effects, potential adverse effects. Why would you? It's stupid. Why would you hurt your manpower like that? But yeah, we got a lot to talk about this, and I'll we got a lot to show you too as we go around. So, morning, Eric.
Good morning, brother. Outstanding. What I think's interesting about this, I think we could all agree that this was the ultimate test for everyone. But for us, obviously, we're hyper focused on the NYPD in New York City, and I think this was the ultimate litmus test for the NYPD. As far as, well, let me just say this, right? So people often say, well, the job sucks, the job's dead, the job this, the job that. And I've been saying this for a long time, and I'll say it again. If you're new to the channel, you haven't heard before, I say, who's the job? And the job is the people at the top that have the keys to the job. They have the power, the authority, and the ability to move it in the direction that they foresee. And that's the leadership of the NYPD. And with that being said, this was the ultimate litmus test for the leadership of the NYPD to stand up and support their members, support the entire police department, and to show that the NYPD is at the hierarchy of all New York City agencies. Now, all New York City agencies are vital to the mission of New York City. There's no doubt about it. But let's be fair and let's be honest. The NYPD is at the top of that hierarchy. And without the NYPD, none of the services actually have the ability to move. So the NYPD plays an extremely vital part for New York City. And actually, we could actually show correlation how it's important for New York State also. But on the New York City level, I don't think the NYPD could put full blame on Anthony Fauci. Am I a fan of Anthony Fauci? Absolutely not. Do I think he's a lying piece of shit? I sure do. That's my opinion. But that with being said, he was an influential federal advisor. He was not the one that implemented the policies. The question is, who actually enforced an employment mandate? That was the NYPD. It wasn't Anthony Fauci. It was the NYPD that imposed their will on the police department. And to this day, we don't know if there was ever, and I think we're all skeptical of it. And the reality is, I think we can all say the answer is no. there was definitely not a level playing field. So when I often talk about a 3-tiered system with the NYPD, that if you're tier 3, your general population, if you're tier 1, you're protected by your rank at the upper management of the NYPD, and if you're tier 2, you're protected by cronyism and nepotism. And that was so prevalent during the COVID vaccine mandate that if you were general population, you were forced to take a vaccine or you would not be in employment. But if you were tier 2 and tier 1, those rules didn't apply. And now here we are at this point, and people want to point fingers at Anthony Fauci, but I'm pointing fingers at the NYPD. Ultimately, who's responsible? If you are a retired member of the NYPD and you took that vaccine because you had to continue employment, if you're still within the NYPD, if you had to, and if you are no longer with the NYPD because you were terminated like Marlon, or you were forced under duress like John to make a decision, and your religious accommodations were not taken into account, they were disregarded, you were disrespected, your constitutional rights were violated, well, this is something we all have to live with. And now we say, well, who do we point blame at? And I say you point blame at the NYPD. The upper management of the NYPD that showed no spine, showed no backbone to support the members and say, wait a minute, let's pump the brakes. You want our members. We're going to force them, because at the time of August of 2021, 47% of the NYPD was vaccinated up to August of 2021. And then October of 2021, when that vaccine was implemented, the expectations on the NYPD were for everyone to get vaccinated as soon as possible. And former Commissioner Dermot Shea and the upper management of the NYPD, not only did they impose a mandate, but they started to sell it. They started to become like used car salesmen. And we have to ask ourselves, why? What happened behind the curtains that the upper management of the NYPD, not only did they impose a mandate, but they started to sell it? And so those are the questions I have. And I'm sure you're thinking the same thing. Why? What was it in for them? Well, we know that it's about self-promotion and self-devotion, and also paving the way for their offspring. But what else was, and I'm curious as to, were there any amenities that were offered to the upper management of the NYPD to push this? To this day, at this point, are there skeletons in the closet that we don't know of? Was any of those members of the upper management, including the former commissioner, were they promised any amenities to not only impose a mandate, but to sell it? What do you think, John?
Well, one, I think for a fact, and I'm just basing this on Turco turning pale white at that LBA meeting, there was a conversation way before. There was a conversation about the COVID mandates way before there was ever a mandate even being discussed. The unions had already said they were going to lay down. So there was some type of deal that was made, and I don't know what it was about. The unions itself, they all were, and I just want to speak for the police unions, they were having nurses in private at their headquarters, and, just the trustees and the people close to the union, the good guys, they went there and they got their vaccines in private. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't get their shot, but I'm saying that I'm gonna double down on what Cam Newton said. Cam Newton, retired quarterback out of the NFL, longtime Carolina Panthers quarterback. He was recently on a podcast, and he was saying that when he talked about the COVID mandate in the NFL, he said the mandate was real. The compliance was theater. And I'm going to say that is overwhelmingly true for the NYPD. The mandate was real. The majority of compliance was theater. And now, that's fine. Look, they put you in a bad spot. I get it. They put you in a bad spot, and you said, I can't lose my job. I'm rather bend my integrity than take a chance with putting something in my body that I'm skeptical of or I don't need. And that's fine. But just think about it this. You are looked at for bending your integrity as a better cop than people that stood up and said, this whole thing is garbage. None of this should happen. This is America. And I think when you look at that, it shows you everything that's wrong with society. It shows you how there's no integrity in the New York City Police Department, because if there was, there would have been an investigation I don't think you guys should have been fired, but I think you guys should have received discipline. And then again, I don't think that anybody should have been fired as a result of non-compliance for that vaccine mandate, because again, when I look at who's responsible, and I'll go into it deeper when it comes back around to me, but ultimately, the people who signed the papers, the people who signed the termination, the NYPD, and whatever agency is more responsible for the way they enforce the mandate than the mayor of New York City or Tony Fauci ever will be. So much more liable. You know, I could go over scenarios in my head where my commanding officer's on the phone with me. He's home at a barbecue or he's out drinking with his buddies. And he's calling me and telling me, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. I was like, yeah, come here. I'm right here. How long are you going to be? You want me to wait for you? You know, because ultimately what he was telling me to do was illegal. So if I would have followed through with his orders over the phone, which was basically the mandate, you're going to do this, and that. Oh, okay. You know, and now we don't have any meeting notes from any of those phone calls. Nobody took notes. Nobody knows any of those conversations. Nobody knows anything what had. Nobody knows anything anymore. You know, and I know that through all of the discovery and all the court cases. You know, if I would have followed through with that order, a lot of those orders, I would have been fired. I would have been on a criminal court stand. And what would I say? Well, my CO told me to do it. All right, well, he's not here anymore. You are. You did it. You followed the order, right? It was his guidance. He gave you improper guidance. Wasn't a lawful order. Shouldn't have followed through with it. What I have up on the screen right now is the Know Your Rights. This comes out in New York State Attorney General Letitia James's office. I hate even calling her the Attorney General because she's basically an absentee. She's not an Attorney General. She is a political ally of the radical left, and she allowed all of this. And her New York State Division of Human Rights, in my opinion, should be dismantled, and everybody should be fired. And every case that they ever got during the COVID mandate should be reopened because they did nothing during that time. They did nothing. And this was guidance that had came out prior to the mandates, prior to even COVID. They had pulled it down for a while. I think it's back up now. But it tells you everything about the religious accommodations. So, again, prior to the mandate, there was 16,000 NYPD employees who did not take the COVID-19 vaccine. 16,000. As the mandate came in and the threats got greater and greater, that 16,000 went to about 8,000. Right? Because you were put under the gun where you had to file a religious accommodation. Now, they obviously wanted to show Mayor de Blasio how good boys and girls they were and that they could get all the cops to be in compliance. But the bottom line is most companies throughout the city, because I don't know if you guys remember that after de Blasio leaves, Adams puts this same mandate on private companies, which is a complete overstep in the United States Constitution. He has no authority to do that. But the companies were like, yeah, whatever. We'll comply. Their employees submitted religious accommodations, and they were granted religious accommodations. And so if the NYPD had followed the law during that time, specifically you, Tanya Meisenholder, specifically your office, so if you would have followed the law like you did for all of your employees in the Reasonable Accommodation Office and all of your employees in Equity and Inclusion who submitted and then they and their friends actually received approved religious accommodations, if you would have followed the law like you did for them, this would have never been an issue because everybody that submitted, like everyone that submits reasonable accommodation requests, would have been granted one. The other thing is, you didn't even need to submit a reasonable accommodation request because according to the guidelines that DCAS put out, who oversees New York City, according to their guidelines, a reasonable accommodation for non-vaccinated employees was that you can continue to mask and test. Now, I see that there's huge equal opportunity issues there. Huge. Why do only the unvaccinated have to wear masks? Why don't the vaccinated, right? Why are you singling out employees? Why are you identifying employees? Why don't the vaccinated employees have to test because they keep coming back with it. You know, so that's huge there. But that was an approved accommodation from DCAS. So technically, every member of the NYPD was already approved. Now, when you look at the medical accommodations, not only did they violate religious liberty and violate all your labor contracts and violate New York State human rights law, the United States Constitution, First Amendment, and their own equal opportunity policy, as well as the guidance that was put out by this hack of an attorney general, Letitia James. Not only did they violate that, now they took it a step further. They said, we don't even care what your doctor tells you. Your doctor's advice is secondary to the dentist, who's now the head of department surgeon or whatever the hell he is, the physical therapist who's now the head surgeon. We don't care. We're going to override what your doctor says. We don't care if you have adverse side effects. We know that you're going to have an adverse side effect to taking this, we don't care. Check yourself into the hospital, have that adverse side effect, and we'll treat you at the hospital. They didn't care. They started completely disregarding medical advice. So they said, we don't care about your religious beliefs. We don't care about your medical needs. We don't care if you have any philosophical reasonings to this. This coming out from the department that says, and this is, I'm going to quote health and wellness here, right? Health and wellness. If it matters to you, it matters to us. You know, I'm going to quote Dr. Tanya Meisenholder. You know, we have to look at all of the factors that preclude women from becoming cops. This harsh, masculine environment that they're subjected to. I'm paraphrasing here, obviously, but that's basically what they're pushing, right? We care about you. We care about your needs, your wants. We care about your medical aspects. We don't want to do anything that's going to get you to leave policing. We want to keep you in policing because, hey, I'm pushing this 30 for 30 movement. I need 30% of the New York City Police Department to be women by 2030 because, you know, women are better cops than men. And the newer generation is better than the older generation, and they have better morals, right? And so all that went out the window, and they said, no, we don't care. How you doing? I'm Harvey Weinstein. If you want to play the part in this movie, we're all theaters on the stage of life. We all have our entries and exits. And if you want to play in this, if you want to be in this play, you want to be in your role as a New York City police officer or as a sergeant, as a lieutenant, a captain, an inspector, a chief. If you want to be a civilian, you want to be a PRAA, you want to be whatever you are, even a cleaner. You're going out there cleaning the COVID things. You want to continue to do that. You work by yourself. We don't care. In order for you to keep that role, you're going to put this in your body or you're out of here. And so when I think of who's liable, it is the NYPD is liable. Does that alleviate Tony Fauci? Does that alleviate Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams? Does that alleviate anybody? No. But I'll tell you who's mainly responsible for all that. And I'm going to give you 3 names right now. You ready for them? Keechant Sewell, who I don't believe was vaccinated. Keechant Sewell, who enforced the COVID-19 vaccine mandate. Her name should be number 1 on your list. Number 2, Police Commissioner Ed Caban. And I'm sorry, Keechant Sewell should be number 2 because number 1 should be Dermot Shea. Dermot Shea should be number 1 on your lawsuit, followed by the other two police commissioners if your religious accommodation request was denied during their times, followed by Dr. Tanya Meisenholder, followed by whoever else was in the reasonable accommodation unit, whether it was Mary King, followed by the rookie that had no training in reasonable accommodation requests, denied all of our reasonable accommodations, and said, well, he didn't even make a decision. He was just told to check no, even though he perjured himself thousands of times and signed off that he investigated the case and he was the investigating officer and we weren't entitled to religious accommodation requests. Can't think of that young man's name. If anybody knows it, please put it out. I'll read it out because he deserves a little public shaming himself. And I get you a rookie. I get you a put in a bad spot. I don't really care. So, you know, it is what it is. You decided to go along with it. You went along with the world. And you're going to suffer those consequences like everybody else. And I do believe everyone's like, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Let me tell you something. There's a lot more that's going to come out about this. And there's a lot more. And we've been saying it for a very long time. There's going to be a lot of health implications. There's going to be a lot of rage coming out from a lot of people who were forced under duress to put something in their body that they did not want. And they lost their pregnancy as a result of it. They lost a loved one as a result of it, or they're permanently injured as a result of it. And I know a lot of people are scared because you feel like, I'm by myself. Nobody cares. The world's against me. It's just John, Marlon, and Eric talking about this. Look what happened to them. Nobody really cares about me. Let me tell you something. There's a lot more of you than there is of us. And there's a lot more of you than there is of the people that pushed it on you. And it's about time you all get your head out of your ass and you start speaking up while you're still here on this earth, because this life is short and there will be a reckoning.
It's funny to say that, right? Because yesterday came up on my feed, social media stuff that you're thinking about or however it reads your brain. But it came up on my feed. It was like one of those top 5 things or 6 things. And one of it was 6 things that people regret right before they die. And you know what one of them was? Not telling the truth. Not being honest with themselves in their lives. I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I thought it was pretty fitting. I was like, wow, we're doing this episode tomorrow, talking about the vaccine mandate, talking about who's ultimately responsible. Is it Fauci? Is it the NYPD? And it came up about people not being honest and having to go to their deathbeds with that. So I think that's quite interesting. It's kind of ironic. So I started looking up some cases. So I found it's quite interesting. There's a case here. John, maybe you heard of it already, or Marlon. It was an NYPD cop. His name is Jeffrey Hunold, Hunold. And he requests a religious accommodation from the COVID mandate and proposed masking. We just talked about this, right? And weekly testing. And the NYPD denied him on his insufficient religious documentation. I don't even know what documentation you're supposed to have. It's quite interesting, right? Because the documentation you fill out, right, is the reasonable accommodation sheet with the Office of Equal Employment Opportunity. But this is what I thought was fascinating and even held up in the appellate court. Why was he also denied? And I think this came up with you, Marlon and John. John, I think it came up with you, actually. Ready for this? No demonstrated history of vaccine or medicine refusal. Now, with HIPAA laws, how the hell would the NYPD know if you ever refused a vaccine or refused any medicine? I thought that was the most ridiculous thing. So if you went to the doctor and the doctor said, hey, you need antibiotics, you need to take clindamycin. You're like, no, I don't want to take clindamycin. I'd rather take amoxicillin. Is that refusing medicine? And first of all, how would the NYPD know that anyway? So I thought it was quite interesting. But we're talking about the, so I took, I researched on this. So he challenged the decision. We're talking about the New York State human rights law. He challenged under the New York State and city human rights law, and the courts rejected it, and the appellate division affirmed it. So, Marlon, to your point, is the New York State Constitution completely violated? Absolutely. Absolutely. I just thought that was amazing. And there was another case also of another NYPD cop, Cola. Did you hear the name? Cola versus the city of New York. Kola. Again, also involved.
Cola was the first guest on the Finest Unfiltered.
So you know,
He was a church elder. Denied. I know pastors, I know deacons, I know reverends. Denied.
Is it? And they affirmed his dismissal. So, but going back to that, I just think that to me, it's fascinating. How would you present? How would the NYPD know? And how did the NYPD upper management not support the entire job? And for themselves also to say, wait a minute, what about HIPAA laws? How is the NYPD? How did Dermot Shea actually allow this? Because let me ask you something, former Commissioner Dermot Shea. How do you sleep at night? How is the NYPD supposed to know if I ever denied clindamycin and I chose amoxicillin instead? Or how do they know if you ever refused a vaccine? How would the NYPD actually be privy to the information? And that's why I think it's so fitting, right, Marlon? Because all you did was ask questions. And that's what we all should be asking, right? And that's why I often say, And sometimes I have an affinity for this generation, while sometimes I despise it at the same time, right? This generation, unfortunately, has their head buried in phones. But I think this generation is much better at asking questions. You know, I came through a generation where I went to the Marine Corps, and you know, to be a good soldier, to be a good Marine, sometimes asking questions slows things down. And when you ask questions, it could slow down the mission. But this generation is taught to always ask questions and challenge authority. And for that, I have an affinity for it. And sometimes we have to pump the brakes and challenge authority and say, wait a minute, what are we doing here? How could we be expected? How could the job be privy to the information if you refuse the vaccine or refuse medicine? That, to me, is insane. And what document, in this case of Jeffrey Hunold, what documentation was he supposed to prove? Is it pictures of him at church? Is it pictures of him in a christening? Is it pictures of him, getting a brisket and his penis cut off? I mean, what type of documentation do you need to show? This is absolutely insane. So when it comes to this, that's why I said, do you blame Anthony Fauci for that? No, he advised it. Yes. Is he a piece of shit? There's no doubt about it. But who imposed their will on the members of the NYPD? Tier 3, general population. Who imposed their will? Weak men. Yes, Winston Faison, pussies, cowards that allowed this. Did Dermot Shea, did he get the vaccine? Did he make his son that went to the detective squad with 18 months get the vaccine? Did his son have to disclose what vaccines he might have refused or medicine throughout his life? These are questions. We should all be asking these questions. And yes, they're cowards for allowing this. Marlon, what do you think, brother? Welcome back, man. What do you think about how would the NYPD know if someone was ever denied a vaccine or denied medicine?
Yeah. Sorry about that. Again, I'm having like terrible internet connection, so I gotta change it up a little bit. Let's hope I won't get kicked out again on this one. But yeah, I don't know exactly. I kind of missed a lot there, but you know, John said earlier that a lot that the scamdemic revealed a lot about what's wrong in America, and I'm going to 100% agree with that. I think it revealed not just the marriage between like Wall Street and the left and the right, but it also revealed how much we're being ruled by industrial complexes in this country, in particular pharmaceutical industrial complexes. I also think it showed that society lacks common sense right now, and that we have a lot of order takers who masquerade as leaders, but they really, again, they really just followers and order takers with no real leadership skills or thinking in the thinking up there. Again, the reason why I keep making this analogy about a general and the military is because we were facing two different outcomes that are unknown. Either you face the virus, and there might be people that who are in poor health and who have preconditions that's going to harm them. The vax is going to hit them harder. Or you take an unknown cure that has unknown adverse side effects. So two unknowns. You're that general, and on one hill, over one hill, there might be an army, and over the other hill there might be another army. So what are you gonna do? Are you gonna say, oh, you know what? Let's go all in on that side. Okay? No, you don't. You find you make smart policy that kind of splits the difference, and that kind of protects your forces so that you don't you don't wipe out all your you don't harm all your men. Okay? And unfortunately, that's not what happened. The job went all in on the scamdemic. Okay? And they told even those people who who had conditions, pre-existing conditions, including being pregnant, that where the vaccine would have even worse consequences on them, and they told them they have to get the shot too. which is just stupidity. And again, I say we've lost common sense in this country, and in a lot of ways, you know, a lot of the conditions in this country are because of that. You see, again, I always say if you travel to parts of this country and it's like a third world, and why did it become a third world? Well, because look at the leaders that we have leading this country, the leaders that we have leading this country. Look at the people in charge of government, the administrators of government. They're all stupid, okay? But they people like Meisenholder have a massive vocabulary. Uh, People like Kenneth Corey, they're well spoken, right? They'll give you like an hour of bullshit that's really telling you nothing, but because that's all they have. All they have is that massive vocabulary that they read in a book. Okay, they learned in school. They don't have any real thoughts behind it. Because if you did, you wouldn't have been stupid enough to go along with this, but you did. Okay, and and here we are facing. Here we are where the consequences are finally being told to us. And like John said, there's more that's gonna be coming out. Eventually, they're gonna tell you everything about this.
So I just want to talk about because first of all, I hate looking at AI for those cases, because like I've said, AI is totally biased. They are only going to give you the narrative that they want you to believe, that, oh, this was legal and this can't be challenged and all this stuff. And New York courts, particularly New York courts, they are the arm of the executive branch, right? There is no judicial branch in New York. Like, there's no investigative body. There's no attorney general. There's no real law enforcement force. They're just the arm of the Democratic Party. Same is true for the judicial branch. However, there have been plenty of successful cases against this mandate. You will just never read about them, and you will just never hear about them. And I want to talk a little bit about the case of Isaac Valdez. Isaac Valdez just retired from the New York City Police Department. You could see him here holding his certificate of achievement. Unvaccinated legend, because he is. Because Isaac Valdez was terminated from the New York City Police Department. He and his attorney, Jimmy Wagner, Jimmy was able to get him. I think his came out. I think his official denial came out a few months after, and we already knew about. And now he was doing the same thing I was doing. He was calling every attorney, but he had got Jimmy's ear, and they filed an Article 78, and they appealed, and the judge overturned it. They overturned it, and he had to walk back into the New York City Police Department, and they had to hire him back. So he got hired back. He never got any of his back pay. He never got an apology. He never got any of that. So he said, screw that. You're going to pay me my back pay. You're going to restore my time. You're going to do all those things. And he took NYPD in the city of New York to court. And when he did, they went to discovery. The NYPD, Danya Meisenholder, had to get up on the stand during discovery. And she had to fight this mandate. And what happened was the city of New York, what came out is, one, that they were using this kid, police officer Mamorali of the 23rd Precinct, who was injured at the time, and they put him in the reasonable accommodation unit. And they were using him as the investigator. So for your point, Eric, they were using him as the investigator to investigate your religious accommodation. Now, in order to conduct an investigation, I think you would have to call the people, right? You'd have to say, hey, John, you submitted for this reasonable accommodation request. Can we interview you? That never happened. And that's required according to New York State Division of Human Rights. So they didn't do that. To check a box to say you have no documented history of refusing medicines when they never asked you a question, they have no access to your medical records, is a blatant falsehood and a lie. And Mammerly, after Meisenholder had testified that she didn't mandate it, she testified, no, I didn't mandate this. This came from City Hall. She didn't remember any of the guidance they had. They didn't remember any of the phone conversations. They didn't remember any of the emails. City of New York didn't want to turn over any discovery. even after being ordered several times by the judge. Then Mammerly gets up there and testifies that, oh, no, he didn't really investigate any of these things. He was just told, someone gave him a piece of paper, and he was told what boxes to check and what to sign. And so he perjured himself thousands of times. And so once that came out and Jimmy kept pushing for more discovery, guess what the city of New York did? And I'd love to do an episode one day with Isaac and maybe Jimmy and go through all of that court testimony. Or maybe we could just recreate it because I have it all. It's all public information. I have it all out there. Because it's unbelievable the things you hear when you hear how many laws they violated. The NYPD specifically, Tanya Meisenholder and her staff specifically, Mary King specifically, all of these people get up on the stand, completely show they have no integrity. They're not smart. They might have a large vocabulary, but they don't have any common sense. And what ultimately do you think happens with Isaac Valdez? The city of New York says there's no way we can hand over this discovery because it would have massive implications for every court case, including mine and Marlon's and many others. So they said to Isaac Valdez, how much money do you want? Here's all your time. Here's your money. Please go away. Please stop having your lawyer from Brooklyn beat us up on the stand and make us look like idiots. Take your money and get out of here. And so, but that's never going to come up in ChatGPT. And that's never going to be presented in the papers. You're never going to hear about the case of Isaac Valdez other than on the Finest Unfiltered. Because it was a case that I followed for a while. And I was leaking out stuff constantly about the case, all of the stuff. I mean, we could do literally an 8-hour episode just on those discovery sessions. And I still don't think it would be enough. So how did they determine that you never refused medicine in your life? They didn't. They just checked the box. And the investigative officer actually didn't even investigate anything. And he got up on the stand and told you that he perjured himself officially on official documents in New York City. And he did it under the guidance of Dr. Tanya Meisenholder, who's pointing fingers at the mayor's office, who is now going to be pointing fingers at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci didn't break the law. You did. Dr. Fauci wasn't an incompetent deputy commissioner of equity. You were. Dr. Fauci didn't tell you to perjure yourself 1,000 times, and he didn't perjure himself 1,000 times because not only does he have immunity, he pleaded the fifth. You did, Marley. You perjured yourself.
Is Mama Luke still on the job?
And just one more thing on that. During the same time, when they're telling you you can never, ever, ever refuse medicine if you ever took an aspirin, because that was some of the conversations that were had. If you ever even took an aspirin, you could never say no to anything that the NYPD wants to shove down your throat. That's what the NYPD and some courts in New York upheld that, and they'll have to answer to God one day. And I wouldn't want to be them, but they will, right? And that's fine. That's fine because sometimes your rewards here aren't here on earth; they're elsewhere. And for all of those that are being rewarded greatly here on earth, they're gonna have a real hard time in the afterlife. Unless, the Egyptians tried it and they failed because all that happened to them was they got robbed. And I think the same thing, if you want to bury your pension with you and all your cars and your money and your jewelry and your watches, because it all goes to the wind. You don't get it. You don't get to take it with you. So at the same time they were doing this, the city of New York was telling you that at any moment, you could do it every day, every hour, every minute, every second. You could change your gender. You could be a man. You could be a woman. You could be gender transforming. You could change your gender at any time. At any time, and the NYPD would accommodate you. The NYPD also said at any time you could wear a beard under a religious accommodation. Leviticus 19:27, thou shalt not cut the sides of your head or your face, nor tattoo your body. Yet thousands upon thousands of male NYPD officers submitted Leviticus 1927, even though they never read it. They probably never read the Bible. They all had shape-ups on their head, shaped beards, and tattoos on their arms, and they were approved 100% of the times. You know why? Because the NYPD followed reasonable accommodation law. That's why. In the case of the beard. In the case of the vaccine, they did not. Do you know why they accommodate transgenders, transgender, transforming? Do you know why you could change from a male to a female like this every second of the day if you'd like? Every day if you'd like. You know why? Because they followed reasonable accommodation law. They followed equal opportunity law. In the case of COVID, they did not. The religious accommodation requests have a 99.9% approval rate historically. Only during COVID did they have a 6% approval rate. Who were the 6%? Friends and family. That was it. And there was a lot of people that never even had to put one in. So to answer your question, Eric, how they investigate it, they absolutely did not investigate one reasonable accommodation request. They did not follow the law. They just said, screw all yous. We don't care. And especially if you're Catholic, because the Pope said. There is no religious accommodation. We don't care what your doctor said. We don't care what your objection is. We don't care that we can't answer any of your questions either. You're going to do it, or you're going to starve and die in the street.
Yeah. Yeah. Where do I start on this? Shout out to Isaac. You know, I didn't know he retired, but you know, shout out to Isaac. You know, for being a fighter all the way through. You know. Yeah. You know what I find strange is that this video you're seeing there is on the PBA's website, right? The PBA, like the other unions, loves to talk about getting more money for cops. You know, that they think that the fact that you don't get paid enough is the source of all your problems with the job, right? So you know what I find strange? I find it strange that even after the scamdemic and all that's come out about it, that they still don't want to use that as a bargaining tool. You'd think, right, that they would be pounding the table about the fact that you all took that you know, that medical experiment, and they would be using it to get you guarantees with your health care, get you even, you know, as misguided as it is, even to get you more money, thinking that, again, that'll solve every problem with your job, right? But they're not. They're not even mentioning any of this still. Isn't that a little bit strange? Because it strikes me as a little bit strange, you know, that here you have like the literal sword of Damocles, yeah, but you don't want to use it, you know? You're complaining about money, but you have a bargaining tool here that would get you that money, you know? So, and they're not the only ones too. You know, the DEA, the SBA, the LBA, none of them are mentioning any of this, you know? None of them are using Isaac's case to press for the rest of you guys to get, you know, get something from having to take that medical experiment. Isn't that a little bit strange? Did your union actually tell you about Isaac's case? Isn't that a little bit strange? You know, Scott, when I first spoke to Scott, he told me, Scott Monroe of the DEA's president for you civilians. Scott told me that would have never happened if he was the president. Well, isn't it a little strange that all the information that's coming out now, you know, Scott doesn't want to mention it? Isn't that a little strange? Seems a little strange to me.
And so right now we propose the question, who is ultimately liable right now? Is it Fauci or the NYPD? So I think right now, of course, it's the NYPD. However, I think if the unions really cared at this point, it would be a great opportunity for all the unions to form a coalition. And in the aftermath of the refusal to testify from Anthony Fauci, to say we want to revisit discovery, we want to revisit how this mandate was imposed, and we want to get back to filing Article 78s for every member that was wronged by this vaccine mandate. And to John's point earlier, you said, I think that's a great point, to just show how how the NYPD members were completely ridiculed. If you were vaccinated or you were not vaccinated, everyone should have still been walking on the same path. It should have been equitable, imposed will from the NYPD as far as if you're vaccinated or not, you should be wearing that mask or not wearing that mask. If you're vaccinated or not, you should be getting testing or not. Everyone should have been tested. Especially the fact that what about HIPAA laws or just, John, you often talk about humiliation rituals. It is humiliating. I remember when they had the tests were near the desk, right? And they were on the desk on purpose to make sure that people were actually being part of that testing. So they had to go by the desk, conduct that test, and then put it back in that box, and then it was collected at the end of the day. So yeah, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. It should have been a level playing field. And there's no doubt about it. I often talk about the three-tier system. That the three-tier system was more prevalent, or we saw how it just ripped through the police department during COVID. That it was a three-tiered operation. I saw it as prevalent as you could. Tier 1, the upper management, they were, they had complete protection. Tier 2, obviously, anyone that was connected by nepotism, cronyism, and then your Tier 3 general population fell into that box I was telling you about. And there were numerous upper management throughout the police department, not just chiefs, but we're talking about commanders that were selling these vaccines, selling this mandate. And you have to ask yourself why. It didn't, and that's really ultimately the question that I have. It didn't just come an employment requirement. They were selling it and pushing it. So we really have to ask why. And so at this point, I think the unions should form a coalition and say we want to revisit discovery, and we want all the information, and we want to know why there was a lack of an investigation. And where is that cop right now? Is he still on the job, Officer Mamaluke? I want to know if Officer Mamaluke is still on the job, and every union should be pressing Mamaluke to find out what exactly happened with those documents and what was his interaction with Tanya Meisenholder. They should be pushing this, and exactly that. With the case of Isaac Valdez, that case should be the quintessential case to compare it to everyone else. Why didn't Marlon get the same amenities as Isaac Valdez? There should be a level playing field. Why didn't John or anyone else that was in that position of asking questions or putting a religious accommodation? No doubt about it.
And so here's the thing, why we're discussing this is, and why we're discussing this now is Fauci's private text messages are now being released. He pleaded the fifth, even though he was granted immunity and never charged with a crime. The science was giving immunity, and then the science pleaded the fifth because he can't even logically argue his case anymore. And now the science, we have access to his text messages, 1/25/2021. Way before the mandate. As a matter of fact, 9 months before the mandate. 9 months before they started mandating. Remember I said, 9 months before they mandated it, to be fair, on the cops and firefighters. The mandate started on nurses much earlier, and then it was the teachers were about a month or two prior to us. So this is from Dr. Fauci. I asked around a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. Since many people have significant cytotones, storms, and fever after the second dose, it theoretically could be associated with miscarriages in the first trimester. And now there are numerous reports that miscarriages skyrocketed during that time. And so for those of you in city employment that unfortunately suffered a miscarriage during that time, where is your union for you? You were harmed by New York City. They forced you to do something under threat of termination. They forced you to put something in your body even though you didn't want to do it. And because of that, you lost your unborn child. I would think that every union across this city would be up in arms and screaming. I would think that every lefty lib would be up in arms screaming. I would think that the people that scream for equity, that fraud Zohran Mamdani Fauci and the rest of New York City Council and the State Assembly and the Senate and all those soft, fat, spineless, bitch-titted Republicans, I would think that they would all be screaming and saying, what the hell did we do? We have to make this right. And look, are you ever going to get your child back? No. Are you ever going to stop? Is that trauma going to be there till the day you die? Yes, it is. Absolutely. They're never going to be able to remove that from you. But the fact you need to band together and sue the living daylights out of every single one of them. And I'm talking about the heads of your agency. And yes, you named Dr. Fauci. And yes, you named Dr. J. Varma. And yes, you named the mayor. But you named the people that made the decision that said they were going to fire you. And in the case of the NYPD, that starts with the people in the reasonable accommodation unit. That starts with the police commissioners at that time. And you name every single person that pushed that down on you. Every single supervisor and every single peer and every single subordinate. Because this has to stop. This should never happen again in history. And we've had de Blasio say he wants to do it again. We've had Eric Adams say that he needs to do this again, which is why he refused to hire me and Marlon back and say that he's sorry and reinstate us. And we've had Zohran Mamdani on this podcast say that he wants to do it again and he needs to be able to do this again. And this should never happen to another generation ever again. You know how the greatest generation, the World War II generation, we are the weakest generation. We could fix that ship while we're still here on Earth. But you got to all grab your nutsack and start saying, you know what? Never again. Not happening. Never again. We're not going to flout all of these rules. You're not going to push this down on me. You're not going to have a demon. Literally, you're not going to get with this. Look at this. Look at this. This was one of the most disgusting things I ever remember. This news interview does not go viral the way the cheeseburger one does, but this news interview should go viral every day, all day. All day. Look, this is the face of evil. This is the face of evil, but ultimately, he's not responsible. You, who decided that you were going to jump in front of this man and push his mandates on people and deny the law, deny the Constitution, throw it out the window, deny equal opportunity policy, forget everything, unions included, every single one of you, whether you were the president or not, you were on the fucking board. So I don't care. Scott, you were on the board. I don't care. You aren't the president. Doesn't matter. Hendry, you were on the board. Valalong, you were the president. Turco, you were the cowardly president. So was Monahan. They were all on the board. They were all on the board. This is what the mayor of the city of New York says. You ready for this one?
And you know what? Sometimes you got to use a muscular approach to help make sure that things go right. These mandates, I am telling you, if and anybody out there listening, a CEO or a public leader, just do it. Because, yeah, there's a lot of noise in the beginning, but people respond to deadlines. People respond to a firm, tough decision. I guarantee you, people don't like to lose their paycheck. And you say, get vaccinated or no paycheck, that'll get some people moving quickly. And the proof is in the pudding. It happened with lightning speed in this city, and now it's made us safer. And now things are coming back to life. We got to end the COVID era. We got to end it once and for all.
Just take their paycheck. And he went on in other interviews. That actually wasn't even the worst one. He did that in another interview days later where he was in a furor. And he was like, you just take their paycheck. You just tell them you're not going to eat. And you see how quick people want to get vaccinated. You see how quick the hesitancy stops. You know, and what'd your unions do? What did you ball sniffers do? You went and you licked his balls. And you were like, you do it, honey. You do it to the kids. You know what he did? Oh, I took my daughter there crying. I had to hold her down. You fucking cowards. And you know, it is fucking unbelievable, dude. That is it. Like, and then he puts his little cheeseburger thing. Oh, you did a cheeseburger option? All that nonsense. And we're going to sit here and say that we're the greatest law enforcement agency in the world. We're the greatest law enforcement agency in the world when we clearly didn't have any investigators detectives at that time in the NYPD. We clearly didn't have anyone that see that this was a huge propaganda fear campaign. We clearly didn't see that we didn't have people saying that this was the government working in collusion with private business and stripping your civil liberties away. We didn't have unions talking about the greatest threat to civil rights and to labor in the last 100 years. They didn't say anything. They were all bought at hook, line, and sinker. They were like, oh, okay, I'm not going to say nothing. Shh, John, shh. John, shh, you're a smart guy. Shh, we'll get you promoted, John. Shh, we'll get you LSA, John. Shh, don't worry about it. Just do it, John. Just don't do it. Just stop saying that, all right? Please don't go on the news again, John. Don't do that, you know? Okay, all right, don't worry, John. You okay, don't worry. You're going to be smart. You're going to be fine. We'll fight for you later on, John. Just be quiet, okay? Shh. Just don't go on social media, John. You're so smart. You're so good. You have such a bright future ahead of you. Just stop talking on social media, John.
Yeah. You know, what you guys are looking at right now is my email to the question when we would get all that propaganda from the NYPD. You know, they had an email address called the COVID-19 questions. What you're looking at is an email I sent them. So the one thing we're not talking about here is that not only was the policy to look over religious accommodations, any accommodation really, not only was it unfair and illegal, but the entire vaccine was illegal. Okay, you can't mandate it. Okay, what you're looking at here is an email I sent, that an email that was forwarded to your medical division. Okay, and specifically read by Dr. Kufo, Joseph Kufo, who's the chief deputy chief surgeon at medical division. He's the number 2, right? And those documents you see in there, this one in particular is directly from this one. Page 2 is directly from the FDA, and in it they tell you themselves that this is not the approved one. In fact, the approved vaccine never came on the market up until the mandate was practically over. Okay, so they mandated a vaccine that you never had access to begin with. You never did. Again, the approved one didn't hit the market. It was not available to any of you. So not only was their policy illegal and wrong, but the entire scamdemic was the mandate was illegal. You cannot mandate a medical experiment, okay? Which this was. So you should add Dr. Kufo to that, okay? And again, for those of you who unfortunately had miscarriages from the vaccine, keep in mind that your medical division knew if they didn't know the adverse consequences here, right? Or that they didn't put common sense together and realize they shouldn't have been given to pregnant women. When they saw this, this alone should have raised alarm bells. And keep in mind, I sent this email in on Wednesday, August 25th of 2021. So that was months before the mandate even dropped in the NYPD. So even if they didn't have common sense before, they could have easily looked at this document, gone to the FDA's website, which by the way, I put into the email. You see, all these links were available then. For some strange reason, a lot of these links are no longer on the FDA's website, but back then they were. So even if they didn't have common sense, they could have went and read the FDA's own documents themselves, but instead they didn't. Okay, and as I said before, Kufo tried to get me basically, reprimanded by my bosses at Intel. So you guys definitely should add medical division to that and understand that this is just how bad things were and how determined they were to give you this, regardless of the facts that were put before them.
It's the trolls are funny today. Jack 14% said I'm double boosted and in better shape than all that. It's got to be Jack. Well, anyway, so I have a rhetorical question. I think this is important to this discussion. So if we were to flip this, rhetorically speaking, and I want people to think about this, does this change anything? If the science that was determined, if Anthony Fauci testified, and if we had different byproducts and outcomes, and it turns out, rhetorically speaking, it turns out the vaccine was the greatest thing they ever came out with. It turns out to be, gives you better testosterone. It's great estrogen, helps women get pregnant that couldn't get pregnant before, builds muscle. If it comes out just like the best thing since sliced bread, does that change the conversation? And I say no, it doesn't. Because ultimately what we're talking about here is that something was implemented, but it was also imposed. And so while vaccine mandates are affirmed by the courts in this country, I think what we ultimately have to discuss is how are these mandates imposed? And I think that's what's really important to look at, is how the NYPD actually imposed it on their department, how they violated people's rights. I think ultimately it doesn't matter right now if it's the worst thing that has all these byproduct outcomes that are harmful, or if it turns out, rhetorically speaking, let's switch the conversation. Let's say it turns out that John missed out. He could have got more testosterone. It helps anxiety. Marlon missed out. It helps your eyesight. You could get 20/20 vision. Does that make a difference? And ultimately, I think the answer is no, because ultimately how they implemented it violated your rights, violated everyone's rights. And I think that's what's important about this conversation, because ultimately, your body, your choice, right? I think ultimately that's the conversation that we're having. And it doesn't matter whether the science behind it turns out it's fruitful and you missed out on a great benefit, or is harmful. You should get to choose what goes in your body or not. And to have a 7-day window to make that decision, to me, violates everyone's rights. I think it's absolutely the most ridiculous thing. And what's interesting about this conversation also, and I think sometimes people may not have been informed to educate on this. In John's case, it was a religious accommodation. But for Marlon, it was just simply asking questions. And I think that was a great point, Marlon. I think you should touch on that more, is that it was referred back to your intel that pretty much that you were kind of combative and that you were a discipline problem because you were asking questions. And I think that's the scary part about this. We talk about compliance and how the upper management of the NYPD imposes throughout the police department, and how they expected compliance, and how questions became a tool and a weapon on fighting back. They didn't want any questions. They just wanted compliance. That, to me, is scary. But I think ultimately we should go back to that question. Does it matter if it's a good product or not? Does it matter if you missed out on the best thing since sliced bread? I think it does matter. What matters is you should have a choice on what goes in your body. You should have a choice. It doesn't matter if it turns out it's great or if it turns out it's harmful. You should make that decision.
But the bottom line is there is no such medicine on earth with zero side effects ever. Right. So ultimately, like, you know what I mean? Ultimately, like, vitamin D might be great for you, but it might not be good for me to put in my body. I might have an excess amount of it. You know what I mean? We're all significantly different as humans. You know what I mean? And when we're talking about giving up your bodily autonomy, I mean, I don't know any religion that would support that. So I don't give a shit what the Pope said at that time, because he was dead wrong. I didn't care what my priest was saying. I was like, I don't like, whoa, hold on here. Like, hold on. I read this book. I've been coming to this faith for 40 years. Everything that I'm told in this book tells me, including my own private conversations with God, tells me that I'm not supposed to do this, because these are blatant lies out there in the world. Every single being in my every fiber in my body is telling me this is wrong. Every single thing. James Sheehan on LinkedIn. James, what's up, brother? James, former NYPD executive, now in the law enforcement field. He says you can't discount the massive censorship and propaganda complex that the Fed government implemented. The Twitter files that were released after Musk bought the platform highlighted the extent that federal law enforcement was utilized to deplatform anyone that pushed back. Look, I know I suffered under it. I still suffer under it. That same thing is still there today. It's alleviated a lot, but I mean, I personally, you look at my social media, I think it's the most censored thing I've ever seen in my life. I've been retweeted by anyone you could think of. Name a person. They've retweeted me, responded to me, and I'm like stuck in a box, and that includes on X. That's supposed to be the free speech platform. If you look on X right now, during this conversation, there's times we have 35,000 people on there. We have 124 right now. Absolutely no way. No way. We have right now, we have on YouTube 207 people. There's no way this isn't a trending topic on YouTube. It's called censorship. So, and James, and that's a fair point for the public. It's not a fair point when we talk about the NYPD. You know, when I go back to that time, I worked for 2 years throughout the entire pandemic. Start of the riots, late May, early June 2020. We gathered in the auditorium in One Police Plaza every day, about 1,000 of us. No masks, no social distancing, no testing, no vaccine. We did that for months. Months upon months. And guess what? Every single person was exposed to COVID, whether they contacted it or not. They all had it. We knew for 2 years that we were okay and we could live through it. And did we lose people? Yeah, we lost some people. We lost some people that were in bad medical health, and we lost them, a lot of people, because of the protocols that Cuomo put in place and that the hospitals put in place, and doctors refused to treat people, refused to give out basic treatments, Z-Packs, pumps, all this stuff. No, they just wanted to put you on a ventilator. We're not going to treat your pneumonia. We're not going to treat the infection you have in your lungs. We're just going to see what happens because we don't know. You know, I was told when I went to the hospital with pneumonia that I have drug-seeking behavior because I was asking for a Z-Pack. I had to ultimately beg. I had to beg Teladoc, the doctor on the phone. I'm like, here's my release paper. The doctor's telling me I have drug-seeking behavior. I'm going to die on my couch. I can't breathe. I can't get to I was boxing 5-minute rounds. I can't get to the bathroom that's 2 feet away from me without going into a coughing fit. I'm going to die in front of my kids on the couch. And she took mercy on me. She gave me a Z-Pack and an inhaler and some steroids. Guess what happened? My wife rushed there to the pharmacy. She gives it to me, and in 4 hours, I felt my strength come back into my arms. It took me weeks, probably months, to even be able to walk up the steps again without getting dizzy because of the damage that I had done to my lungs, right? I should 100% be out in 3/4 just based upon what happened to me. It was all approved line of duty injury, but I was forced out of my career for an edict in a department that everyone knew, investigators, police officers, everyone knew was illegal. They knew equal opportunity law, and they knew it didn't work because we were the largest experiment in the entire nation of if it worked or not. Because what happens? We weren't wearing masks. De Blasio comes late November of 21, I believe now. He says, none of you guys are wearing masks. What's going on here? They all freak out. Everybody's got to wear a mask. Everybody. I still never wore a mask. I wore it only to my promotion because I had no choice. I was like, what am I going to do? I wore a mask one day when I went shopping the first day, and I said, yeah, this doesn't work. We're going to die. If it's as bad as they said there is, there's nothing we could hide from. The mask's not working. I can't wear the gloves. I can't clean my cereal box and clean the bag and inside the cereal box and clean the pouches inside my oatmeal. I can't do it. If it's as bad as it's saying we're going to do it, Clorox ain't saving us. You know, the only way we're going to know is to get it. And so, you know, I went from that working with these guys every day for 2 years to one day I went out drinking, stayed out late the night before. And I get to work and I'm just run down, man. And my hangover is just killing me. Killing me. I close the door on my couch and I go to sleep. I close the door in my office. I go to sleep on my couch. And I hear a knock at my door. It's a lieutenant, a sergeant, a couple of cops. Lou, when you come out, could you just do us a favor and wear a mask? To which enraged me. I just got up off my desk. I was like, you fucking pussies. I was like, I can't even be hungover. I worked with you guys for 2 years. 2 years during this entire time. And now, because I'm hungover and I don't feel good, you want me to wear a mask when you've had COVID 4 times and I've only had it once. I've only had it one time. Now you're scared of me. Now everything works. So I'll forgive like the elderly guy and girl sitting on their couch listening to media. I'll forgive the young husband and wife sitting home, working from home, trying to raise the 2 kids and listening to the news and thinking they're getting the absolute information. I cannot in good conscience sit there and pretend that everyone in the New York City Police Department did not know that this shit did not work and that the mandate was wrong and that it was illegal and all this other shit. That censorship and all that thing had nothing to do with the New York City Police Department. We worked together every day for 2 years. We flouted all of the rules. It didn't matter. We couldn't even follow them if we wanted to. And everyone pushed it. They all bought it hook, line, and sinker, not because they believed it, because they didn't want to separate from the pack. It was a huge virtue signal. You know how the mask stayed around for years after with everyone. They still walk around like, look, I'm a Democrat. And now it's, you drive around the city, like the mask has been replaced by the city bike. It's like, look at me, I'm riding my bike. Look at me. I don't drive the car. I don't get gas. You know that? Like, that's what it was at that time. There was a ton of people in the New York City Police Department who were virtue signaling. Look at me. Look at how patriotic and look how much morals I have because I'm willing to follow Dr. Tony Fauci and I'll push anything I'm told on you, even though I don't understand it and I can't have a logical argument or debate with you without getting enraged and threatening that you shouldn't get a hospital treatment. I've had fat guys, disgustingly, morbidly obese fat guys, tell me that I shouldn't have got hospital treatment. I'm like, do you really want to start rationing healthcare here? You drink 3 gallons of soda every day. You smoke cigarettes. You can't even sleep without being on a machine because you can't breathe. You're like, I'm like, you're goggling on your own fat right now as I'm talking to you. And you're telling me, who works out every day, eats clean. I don't even smoke. I chew on these things. I didn't even smoke then. I don't even drink. I'm like, you guys, you're telling me that I don't deserve a hospital bed? You want to start rationing healthcare to people? And like, so I don't. Like, New York City Police Department is not the rest of the world. It's not. It was, everyone knew everything. You just had people, they wanted to be part of it. Look at me. Look how great I am. This is what we have to do. I'm a patriot because I threw the Constitution of the United States out the window and I violated every single equal opportunity law. And if we did it any other time, for any other reason, they'd be virtue signaling. That was so wrong, Dana. It was so, I would be so mad. Meanwhile, weren't you the chief of the department when all those allegations came out, Rodney? Oh, yeah, you were, right? What'd you say about that? Oh, nothing, right? Yeah. You'd be so mad. Yeah, get out. And so that's the whole thing is like, it was honestly, it was cowardice and compliance. I'm sorry. Everyone knew it. And a lot of people who argued with me during that time, after it was all said and done, well, admitted, I didn't feel like I had a choice. Yeah, exactly. You didn't feel like I had a choice. Because at the end of the day, unless you were friends with Bill de Blasio, Eric Adams, you didn't have a fucking choice.
Yeah. Quite a lot said there. I see got people in the chat trying to pivot this discussion to one about politics, and I think you need to understand that like we mentioned, a lot of parties were involved in this, and it's not just the opposition. It's not just the other party. Okay, it's both Republicans and Democrats, and we need to get back to the point here that that whole period, that there was a lot that went wrong, and then there was a lot that was illegal that violated the Constitution, and not get lost in tribalist arguments about which party it was that was at fault in particular. They were both at fault. Okay, they were both at fault. If you can't understand by now that you're ruled by a uniparty, then I don't know what to tell you. Okay, I don't know what to tell you, because both parties are funded from the same sources. Those same sources are Wall Street and the oligopoly that seems to be ruling the West and America. Okay, both parties get their money from that. This whole right left is just an illusion that they put up for you. when most of these guys aren't principled. They're not principled on the right, and they're especially not principled. Well, they're not principled on the left, and they're especially not principled on the right. Okay. Behind closed doors, both of these people are partying and doing the same debauchery together. Okay. And they don't care about me or you, and they don't care about the Constitution. So let's move on from that and get back to the discussion at hand. And don't let these people who have invaded the chat, who are propagandists, divert the chat, because they are there. They are sent deliberately so that you are not talking about this, so that you do not see what we talk about, do not hear what we talk about today, and you go back and you talk about it at work, because that's what needs to be done. You need to all be talking about this, and those of you who were harmed by the vax, who have adverse consequences, need to find your balls and go get an attorney and fight for this. Because if you're waiting on the unions to say something, you're gonna end up with turbo cancers, like all the cops and detectives and supervisors that we've seen come down with mysteriously come down with adverse health consequences, even though a lot of them are healthy people. Okay. And nobody's wondering about it. Oh, and by the way, a lot of you older guys who think that the adverse health consequences you're getting now is from 9/11 illnesses, I got terrible news for you, right? I got bad news for you. It's not all 9/11 illnesses. Okay. All right. There was think of it for a second. 9/11 was how many years ago? And now you all of a sudden have turbo cancer, and you're telling me that's 9/11 illness? What unknown medical experiment did you take a couple years ago? You know, nobody wants to come to terms with that. Okay. So my point here, guys, is especially for those of you in the chat, is don't get lost with these propagandists come on here and try to divert the conversation.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Detective Nolan. Nolan will definitely get you at the end. Donated $500 to the channel. He says, I'm aware that many of us make jokes about this matter. This is no joke. All those terminated by the NYPD or forced to leave prematurely under duress need to be made whole again. Do not let this moment pass. Do not give up the struggle. Marlon, John, I stand with you, standing by as always. We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for the coffee and donuts. Let's go to our sponsor, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, now's a time from a message from our partners over at Fauci. I think this is going to be an appropriate trade here. We make predictions every single day about pop culture, the economy, and the biggest stories making headlines. Fauci is America's #1 predictions market platform. It lets you trade those predictions in a live market. Who will be arrested this year is the trade. Right now, Anthony Fauci getting arrested is currently trading at 17%, meaning a $100 trade would pay out $434. On Fauci, you're trading against your peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Fauci app and use code Finest to get $10 when you trade 10. You could also take your phone and scan the QR code below to get access to our link and to get access to that $10 when you trade 10. KALSHI, Fauci. Trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk. May not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Fauci.com/regulatory.
You know, it's interesting going back to what Marlon said. I think we should piggyback on that, and it's a great point. So, Marlon, you mentioned the oligarchy, right? I think that's as prevalent as we've ever seen during COVID, and we saw it. John, you mentioned it earlier, right? The Pope. We saw the elites. We saw the hierarchy of politicians that were pushing this mandate, pushing the vaccine. So I think that's a great discussion, Marlon, because I think the oligarchy is really ultimately the influencers of the vaccine and pushing this. And as I said before, I think that's an important conversation is, does it ultimately matter if it's harmful or if it's actually the best amenity you might have missed out on? I don't think it matters, because ultimately we often talk about your body, your choice. And it's not just for women involved in pregnancy. It should be something that we live throughout. And John, you mentioned something earlier in the episode and kind of gave me chills and brought us back to World War II. And being of Jewish descent, also, I have family members that never made it out of camps. And you said, you know, people felt they were free from it, and then, you know, and then they came for them, right? They came for those that actually filed religious accommodations. So ultimately, I hope this is a learning tool on how do we move forward in life. And this was the ultimate litmus test for the entire country and the entire world. And I can tell you this, through my travels now in retirement, New York is not America. And that's one thing I learned. And that's why people often tell me, like, where are you right now? Well, I tell people I'm in America. I'm traveling by RV in America. And I've been to places where it's complete opposition. And if I would have known, and if we all would have known, living in certain parts of America throughout COVID, we would have had a completely different experience. But it just appears that the Constitution does not hold its weight that it should in New York in comparison to other places. We have to look back during the time when Trump held the presidency at that time. And for some people, they agree with it and some don't. And you have to really analyze this, because Trump said ultimately that, you know, he found himself in a lot of opposition with Fauci and gave it to the federal government and allowed each state to make their own decisions. And ultimately, it came down to geographics on whether you got to live your life with the constitutional rights or not. I mean, if you were in a place like Florida, they were thriving, doing pretty well. But if you were in New York, you were living under the thumb of exactly what Mullen said, the oligarchy, who actually had a say in this. And that was politicians, religious leaders, upper management, the NYPD. That's what's scary about this. And that's why ultimately, if you look back, Zohran Mamdani, when he was interviewed on this show by John and myself, he said he would not give Mullen an opportunity to come back to work. Why? Because ultimately it's about who's going to be compliant. Because in order to move the needle and to move an agenda, you need compliance. And that's why the upper management, and in order to be upper management, the NYPD, you need to be in compliance. You have to neuter yourself. And not only that, you have to virtue signal. As John said earlier, it's very true. You have to virtue signal to those politicians that, hey, not only pick me, but look at me. Look at me. I'm the message that you have, I'm selling it for you. I'm selling it. Hey, look at me. You know, if you think about a job opportunity, hey, remember me. If you think about my son with 18 months going to the detective squad, remember me. I pushed that mandate. And so also going back to the science of it. One thing, listen, I'm not a scientist, but I can tell you this. One thing I learned about medicine, and everyone, I think, pretty much knows this. And John, you spoke about this earlier. In order for medicine to be effective, it has to have some side effects. If it doesn't have side effects, then it doesn't work. Then it doesn't work to the mission or the core that it has. And so we were never told about what the side effects could be for that vaccine mandate. So for people to ask questions, that should have been the time where we all support each other. Say, yeah, we want to get more information. We want to be informed and educated upon it. But instead, how did they deflect from that? Is by giving incentives, incentivizing people. And also, if you look back, it's kind of insulting also. The idea that former Mayor Bill de Blasio thought that he could incentivize people with burgers and French fries. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing. If you go back and think about it, and cops were incentivized with $500. That $500 today, if you took that vaccine against your will, that $500 didn't make a difference in your financial life at all. It didn't make a difference. So, but going back to what I said, I think this is really important. I do. And we're talking about Officer Mamaluk. Oh, yeah, Officer Mamaluk was a rookie. Exactly that. They put Officer Mamaluk in that position. I told you so back when it says Officer Mamarali. I say he's Officer Mamaluk. 2-3 Precinct was a rookie. Absolutely. It's a rookie because he's not going to ask questions. Well, and he might not even be aware of what he's doing. So, ultimately, but I do think that's important. Whether it turns out John and Mullen missed out on the best amenity ever, or if it's actually harmful, it doesn't matter. You should be able to make that choice. They should not determine and define how religious you are. They should not tell you how many questions you should ask. These are things that should never happen again. But ultimately, what we've been told, and we could foreshadow and reflect upon the past, is that there's a highly likely chance that this happens again. Or not exactly a vaccine mandate, but some type of imposing their will and having compliance. And to me, that's what's scary.
I mean, I think people should be worried about a vaccine mandate because every mayor said that they need the ability to continue to do this because public health is changing, right? We're progressing past religious rights. You know, what did Arnold Schwarzenegger? Screw your freedom. Shut up and take the vaccine, right? That was everybody. That was all your Republican, Mike Lawler. I don't think anybody should be forced, but just shut up and take the vaccine, right? Like in his little, actually, he sounds like this. He's like, yeah, I don't think anybody should be forced. Like, you know, like everybody, right? Joe Borelli was dead silent. Oh, I don't know. He's wearing a mask. He's showing his Vax card, going out his feed his fat face. Nicole Maliotakis, all these people, everybody was, you know, they were pro-COVID vaccine. They were all pro-COVID vaccine, you know, and that was the talk at the time, is like they divided you up. And I remember telling people at work, because they were like, oh, he's unvaccinated. I was like, don't ever say I'm unvaccinated again. Don't ever label me as unvaccinated. And they were like, yo, calm down. I'm like, no. I'm not going to calm down. Don't you ever point your finger at me again and say that I'm unvaccinated. You're saying that I'm dirty, that my kids are dirty. And people are like, oh, take it easy. You know, it's told you so back when brings up a great point here. And we're going to get to all your super chats. We appreciate you, brother. He says cops with asthma stood home for months getting money. So you know what? I got news for you. There were cops that stayed home for years, never had to comply with that mandate because they worked from home. They were accommodated to work from home during that whole time. And again, that could have been an approved accommodation. That obviously probably would have been hard for the job to put that. But, you know, the people who were like, they stayed home for years, literal years, dude, like 3 years during the whole time they stayed home. The guys that went out to work didn't put any health issues or any medical issues. They were the ones that were on the front line. They were the ones that got sick right away. They were the ones that had the natural provable antibodies away. And they were the first ones that were fired and forced out. You know, so make that one make sense. And then they gave approved exemptions to stay home. They gave the approved exemptions that you could go to work and just not be in a public-facing command, which I wasn't in a public-facing command. I was the integrity control officer for the facilities management division. The only time I had to go out, I went out to make sure that cleaners were places, that they were there because they were there in offices that were evacuated because somebody had COVID in there. And I would go there, right? Make sure they were there doing their job, cleaning the place. Right? I was there doing construction projects during the entire time. I was out at every detail that I was assigned to. I was actually out for 2 months after Floyd, signed to whatever, 1PP secure, whatever the hell I was assigned to at the time. And I went every day, put my uniform on, grabbed my helmet, and went. I volunteered to do that because I hated sitting in the office. I was just there. I was like, you know what? They brought me back here during COVID. I said, I'm just going to take it to my advantage. I'm going to study. I'll make captain out of here and I'll go back out. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of arbitrary things that happened in the NYPD where no one believed any of the garbage that they were pushing. You know, Eric said it. It was funny because Eric just triggered me when he said it. He's like, it wasn't equitable that only certain people had to wear a mask and certain people had a test. And it's like, it wasn't equitable that certain people got approved accommodations and other people didn't. And I thought we were a city of equity. You know, it started with de Blasio where we were going to be a fair city. Equity was the goal. Where's the equity? Marlon sitting in Queens, no pension, no health benefits, no pay, no apology. And the guys that played theater and submitted fake vaccine cards, they got all the rewards. The guys that took the shot, they're harmed and they don't care about you. Like we told you the O'Brien's case in the FDNY, what happened with him. The doctors in the FDNY, they all said, yeah, no, this is all a result of the COVID vaccine that we forced you to take. But we actually didn't force you to take it. You sat down and you took it. So it's not our responsibility. We're not liable for that. So you're not getting 3/4 for that. We got people with ankle injuries that we got to give 3/4. We have chiefs that are going to sue for 3/4 after their federal investigations are over, after their rape allegations are over, after their allegations that they misused their non-for-profit are over, and we got to give them 3/4. So we forced you to do this and we harmed you, but we're not responsible for that. I mean, and you 9/11 guys that Marlon brought up, I say you guys are all full of shit. I think you're all full of shit. I don't think any of you really give a fuck. I think you're all a bunch of self-serving motherfuckers, right? Everybody sits up there crying about 9/11. Where's my benefits? I want it for this. I want it for that. I want it for this. I want it for that. They lied to us about the air. Well, guess what? They lied to you again, and you took it like a good little girl. And you're not saying a fucking word about it because you're scared, and you just want to get into that fund, but you don't want to help anything else that happened here. So I say you're all full of shit. So that's my opinion. And you know what? And I don't care who doesn't like it. I really don't, because I think you're all fucking full of shit. You're all crying up there. Oh, we'll just relate this back to 9/11. No. Relate it to what it's related to. Relate it to what it's related to. Why were people dropping in one police plaza when they were getting the shot in their arm? Why were people dropping and getting put out in stretchers? Why were there numerous aneurysms immediately after? Somewhere people died and somewhere people have been permanently disabled as a result of it. Why did that happen right at the time that you mandated all of it? Why we have all of these young cops dying suddenly? Why do we have all of these young cops getting turbo cancer? Why? Why is all your dormant issues coming to light now? Serious? You're going to tell me they lied to you about the air? Yeah, they lied to you about the air. They did. And they didn't give a shit about you. And they lied to you about this too. They lied to you about all of it. And you don't want to acknowledge it because, hey, I don't want to, I can't talk about that. We can't talk about that. That's not nice to talk about. We can't bring that up. It's honestly, it's cowardice, dudes. And I'm sorry. I'm not like going to apologize for telling the truth about it. I'm not. It's complete cowardice. You all look like a bunch of self-serving fucks. And the way you guys handled all of this, I don't think you deserve anything. I don't think you deserve anything because you failed the next generation. Our job here on earth, when we're put on here, is to ensure that the following generation, is left better than we got it. And instead, you're leaving the following generation way worse off than the country and the job and the city that you were born into and graced enough to be part of, and an institution that you were graced to be part of. So no, I don't think you deserve anything. I'm not there. Look at this. This was the myth versus fact. I have a ton of these. I'm not bringing these up, but I saved all of these. And if anybody needs them, please, you want to sue? I'll give you them. You need me to come and testify for you? You need me to tell you where I got these from? I got this right from my email in the NYPD. I got this right from the NYPD Department of Internet. If you need any of this data, I'm there for you. I don't care. I don't need $1. I don't need any. I don't even need a thank you. You don't even got to like me. I don't care, because it is wrong, and this should never happen again. This was the myth versus fact. Because if you remember, and I put a video out yesterday about this saying, I was always trained, don't ever give medical advice to anybody. You're not a doctor. You're going to expose yourself to liability. You're going to expose the city of New York to liability. You're going to expose the department to liability. And as a supervisor for over a decade, I held on to that training and I pushed that training because it makes total perfect sense. But in 2021, we had so many people become medical doctors. Well, at least they thought they were. They became vaccine salesmen. They became all this, and they started trying to have logical medical debates that they had no answers to about a product they knew nothing about. And they were trying to disregard law and push, no. We need to trade freedom for safety. We've never had a pandemic like this before. I'm like, oh, no, we have. We've had worse than this. We've had much worse than this. Yeah, we have. And we never gave up freedom for safety, because if you give up freedom for safety, what happens? Those who would trade freedom for safety are destined for a master and deserve one. And so this was the myth versus fact. Who believed this? The myth, according to the NYPD, was the vaccine can affect fertility. The fact was the COVID-19 vaccine does not affect fertility in men or women. There's no evidence that the COVID vaccine can cause problems with the pregnancy, including the development of the fetus. This was 1 year after Fauci in his private text messages was saying the exact opposite. There's the NYPD logo on the bottom. It was kind of hard during that time, and they made those ones just like that for a reason, for the specific reason that you could not screenshot it and keep it. They made it long where you had to scroll down the whole paper and you couldn't get that out on one page or on one screenshot. They did that on purpose. So yeah, anybody needs that, anybody that had a miscarriage in the NYPD after being forced to take that, you need this document, I'll gladly send it to you. You need me to testify on your behalf, I will gladly do that. do not let this go silently. Do not go silently into the good night with this. I have text messages, man. I have DMs. I don't even I wouldn't repeat it because I don't want to blow the people up. But the horrible things that have happened to people that are still alive and they're afraid because they're still fighting to either get 3/4 or to make it through their career. It's terrible what happened to you. The world needs to know about it. You are literally going to enslave the next generation because of your own cowardice. There's nothing wrong with you telling the truth, regardless if the New York City Police Department likes it or not. They cannot do anything to you for suing them. Isaac Valdez is living proof of that. He was suing the New York City Police Department for the last 3 years, and they did nothing to him. As a matter of fact, they tiptoed around him because they knew everything they did was wrong. So do not be scared of them. That's what they want. This was a fear campaign, and they want to rule you by fear. Do not be afraid of them. Afraid of going up to your maker and saying, God damn it, I could have did more. God damn it, I could have been a better person. God damn it, I could have did better in my career. I could have been a better parent. I could have been a better husband. I could have been a better man. I could have been a better citizen. I could have been a better woman. Be worried about that. Don't be worried about if Jessica Tish is going to get mad or this one's going to get mad. They get mad at everything. They hate the truth. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to double down on what John said here. John is spot on, by the way. And if I didn't accidentally delete the spot on, I would have posted a spot on for John there because that was a mic drop, and he's absolutely right, especially as it comes to the older generation and 9/11. And I'm gonna have to push back against Pat Donahue here, good friend of the podcast. Pat says, Marlon, without proof of your theory on recent cancer and illness being attributed to COVID vaccine, downplaying the delayed manifestation of 9/11 linked proven illness is alarming.
Oh,
Pat,
yeah. No, it's not the spike right after that time period is not alarming, Pat, right? Detective skills, Pat. Detective skills. We implement something and there is a huge spike. Let's not look at that. Why? Because there's no fun for it?
yeah. Isn't it also alarming, Pat, that we're disregarding the fact that, there was a massive medical experiment that you guys all took during that period, during 5 years ago? I mean, sure, there might be one or two guys who yes, 9/11 illnesses did manifest. But I mean, are we just gonna totally ignore the fact that this was a medical experiment pushed on you a couple years ago? We're proving the adverse, you know, effects, right? What you're looking at now on screen is an email I sent to the job in January of 2024, right? So what I did a couple months before is my foil came back from the city, from the NYPD, and the foil had all the batch numbers of the vaccines that were pushed onto you, right? So what I did, I took the batch numbers and then I went to the government's VAERS data website from HHS, right? The VAERS database matched vaccine with adverse reactions, and I put it all together in an email in this letter, right? And I connected it to all the batch numbers. And as you can see here, the damages that were connected to the batch lots that you guys all took, right? Some of them include myocarditis. Again, it's heart damage, right? Cancers, blood clotting, a lot of blood clotting, by the way, right? And I put this all together and I sent it to every CO on the job. So whoever was your commanding officer of a precinct or transit district in and some housing, I had some problems getting an address, a physical address for some of them. But if they received this letter from me. I was hoping that some of these COs would pressure medical division to get some facts. I guess none of that happened because, in fact, we do, most of the job are cowards. Okay. But the point in me showing you this, Pat, is that there are a lot of cancers and blood clotting and diseases and adverse reactions connected to those batch lots, which you guys took. Okay. So if you're gonna tell me that if you're gonna attribute all of the recent spikes in cancers and all these adverse reactions that a lot of guys are getting and you're going to tell me that's all 9/11 illness, then I'm going to tell you that that's bullshit. Okay, it's bullshit. And the other thing is, I'm also pushing back against you, HFL. I'm sorry, but the problem here is that what did the older generation learn from 9/11? You guys all talk about how the air was dirty, which we all know now for a fact it was, and the city kept the information from you. But what did you learn? You learned not a fucking thing, because you were the older generations in charge of the department, in charge of the unions, who experienced 9/11, who saw your colleagues die from 9/11 illnesses, while the city continues to withhold the documents. And then the city puts on a mandate, which was illegal. And what did you fucking do? You were the ones telling us, get the shot, get the shot. Like if the city didn't fucking lie to you a couple of years ago. What, did you forget about that? Did you forget about that? It's like I just do not understand it. When I came on, right, when I was a cadet, the older guys told me about 9/11, right? And they told me that how much the city lied to them and how much the EPA was on site and they tested the air and their machines popped, right? So what I took from that is that, God forbid, another 9/11 happens, right? I have to ask questions about things like this. I have to ask questions about the conditions on the ground at ground zero. Because if I don't, the city doesn't give a fuck about me. Okay? So when this happened, what did I do? I asked questions. And that was the lesson I learned, imparted by the older generation. So what did that generation learn? The ones who were in charge. You didn't learn anything. Because if you had learned anything from that, you'd have asked questions and you'd have stopped this at the unions, at the executive leadership. You'd have stopped this from happening. But you didn't do anything. Okay? So when I hear the older generation complaining about 9/11 illness, I'm like, well, what are you complaining about? You're not. What did you do? What are you doing about it? You're still silent about the problems that happened a couple of years ago. Okay, so you learn nothing from it, and that's why the city continues to withhold documents for you as your colleagues get sick and die. So I'm gonna have to push back. I have to push back against that, Pat. I'm sorry, but it's just completely wrong. Okay, it's completely wrong, and we need to learn from the past. Otherwise, we're gonna repeat the same mistakes again. Okay, and also something that was told to me when I was in the academy: you're no good to anybody dead. Okay, so if you don't ask questions at ground zero, you're not helping anybody. Okay, if you get sick by not asking questions and by not putting two and two together, and something happens to you, that's less people that can be helped by you. You're no good to anybody dead. Okay, so that's my rant for today.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack there. I'm sitting here and I'm listening because we had really different paths. When I totally support not injecting yourself with something you don't want to take, whether it's religious beliefs or just asking questions. I don't think you had to ask religious beliefs. I don't think you have to have any reason for it. I believe that if you just don't want it, you shouldn't have to take it. Now, I often talk about it. I took the vaccine because my father was in a nursing home, and I knew I didn't want to take it, but I didn't care. I figured I had about 30 vaccines in the military. I figured, what's one more? I wanted to see my father, and he was in a nursing home, and and I have to be honest, at the time, if I knew it would kill me the following day, I still would have taken it because I just wanted to see my father. So for me, but when I started to see that they pushed this mandate, I support the cops, and I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And I was not in favor of the mask. I did not wear that mask. I think it's absolutely bullshit. I didn't know the science behind it, but I knew I was already in very chaotic and disoriented environments and unhealthy environments. I was in Iraq. I was close to uranium for a long period of time in Iraq. So I figured, why would I have to worry about this? But again, it's it's terrible. It's very interesting to listen to this and how passionate you both are, because being so personally affected by it. Now, I think what's important when we talk about 9/11 illness, I often say this, right? What is a prediction of the future? It's a reflection of the past. No, so what did the NYPD do? and this is where I really have a problem with the upper management. Can we prove a correlation to deaths after people have taken the vaccine? I'm not sure. However, what did the NYPD do after cops and firefighters were vaccinated and there were mysterious deaths that happened, or events after people were vaccinated? I'm not sure if we could make the nexus and the correlation at the time, and maybe we could probably make the inference more now. But the NYPD, even with that knowledge, after learning what they learned from 9/11, and after that, still imposed that vaccine. That's what I think is the most disappointing thing for me. Knowing that young men and women, cops and firemen, had mysterious deaths. Very unassuming young men and women that were in great shape were dying. We did have deaths that were after being vaccinated, and knowing that knowledge, that's where I think it's evil. We're talking about evil, John, former Mayor Bill de Blasio. That's where I think it's evil that the upper management continued to sell and push that vaccine without pumping the brakes and go, wait a minute, we have some mysterious deaths here. We have young men, young cops that have died. We need to find out if there's a correlation to this vaccine before we push this any further. And not one person, not one active chief stood up and said, wait, we need to stop right now and investigate and make sure that our people are healthy before we impose another vaccine. That's where I have a problem. To me, that's where it's evil.
Let's just go back to the whole first thing, right? Like, first of all, it didn't work. Everyone knew it didn't work. Everyone knew it. Like, I don't want to hear anything. And no one knew that. No one thought it was keeping you safe. You weren't going to get it. It was 100% effective. It was the first drug in history that doesn't have side effects. No, everything's good. Everything's good. Right? Then everyone takes it, even though they know it doesn't work. And they keep getting it. And then you told you got to take another one. And then you told you got to take another one. And then you told you got to take another one. And then you told you got to take another one. And everyone knows all this shit. In 2021, this was not an issue. And since that time in 2021, there's been a spike in all-cause deaths. There's been a spike. 9/11, how do we know all of these cancers and all these illnesses stem from 9/11? Oh, I'll tell you. Because there was an investigation done. There were people like myself and Marlon fighting for this, but there was a lot more of you then than there are me and Marlon now fighting for it, right? Because, it's not good. Like, it's not patriotic for me and Marlon to talk about what happened and to show that the majority of you were fucking cowards. I'm like, sorry. It's not nice. We don't want to talk about that. We want to forget about that time in history. We want to forget that we said that being patriotic was throwing the United States Constitution out of the window and forcing even pregnant women to put something in their body that we knew wouldn't help them and potentially could cause harm to them. But hey, we're not going to investigate that. We're just going to link everything that's been spiking back to 9/11. Even though a lot of the people that are having all the same issues that you're having weren't even born before 9/11. Didn't even live in New York City. Weren't even around anywhere close to it. No investigation. Shouldn't look at that at all. We shouldn't look at that, what happened there at that year. No. Because we know, we could do a myth versus fact. We know, right? And like I always said, we were using that term a lot, right? We know this, we know that. And I was like, you know what? It's funny. I keep hearing we know, and everything you say that we know, I don't know. I don't know to be a fact. Everything that was put out there, everything that was a fact has now came out that it was a lie, including these miscarriages. Everything that you were told is going to lie. But no, let's not do an investigation. Let's not. Not our thing, because, Marlon talks about the boomers a lot. And I agree with him. You guys don't give a fuck about anybody but yourselves. At all. Me, mine, my bottom line, don't give a fuck about anything. It is amazing, man. This is the largest civil rights violation in history. This is the largest labor violation in history, not just for the people that were forced out of their careers like me and Marlon, or the people that lost their businesses. How about the people that were forced to put it in their body and are suffering, and no one is even looking at them? No one's paying attention to them, and we're just going to sit there and write it off. Oh, you weren't part of 9/11? Oh, you weren't on the job at 9/11? Oh, it must have just been dormant in your system and just happened to come out right when you were forced to do something. You know, I don't like to talk about it, and I probably never talked about this publicly, and but it's fucking ridiculous, dude. You know, there were two twin girls that lived next door to me in Staten Island. Beautiful girls. Beautiful girls. Anyway, one of them was a nurse, and she was forced to do something at that time. And then she went home, and she was with a boyfriend. And she turned to her boyfriend. She said, "I don't feel good." And she dropped dead. 21, perfect health, just started a life out. And during that same time, a lot of my friends, a lot of my friends' wives, a lot of people I knew were nurses. And guess what happened? They were all having aneurysms too. Some of them dropped dead. Some of them have never been the same since. And nothing has been done to look at what caused that, even though everyone with a fucking brain and everyone with eyes, everyone knows what caused that.
Yeah. So, I saw another statement by Pat Donahue in there. Pat, yeah. So you guys know the DEA wanted to arbitrate. They wanted to use me for arbitration. They didn't want to fight this mandate. I've talked about it multiple times. I'm trying to load up some images for you, but again, my computer's having a little trouble there. But Pat is saying that the DEA was basically ready to legally challenge the vaccine. That is bullshit, Pat. I'm sorry again, brother, but that is 100% bullshit. Now, I know you might be talking to Brian or Brian McGuire or Paul DiGiacomo, but that is some bullshit. And I'll put it on screen right now. So what you're seeing right now is on screen is the email sent from the DEA's attorney to me, right? And this is prior to this, right? The DA's attorney asked me, he said, we're going to use you to help fight this. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sounds good. Then they sent me this email, right? And this email has this attached to it, a waiver. So why do I have to sign a waiver for? Aren't you my union? Why am I signing a waiver? Why did I need a waiver when we had Article 78, which I didn't know at the time, and the union didn't tell me about, right? I had no idea about that. So why do I need a waiver? Did Isaac need a waiver? No, he didn't. So why did I need to use a waiver? And the waiver was because the DA wanted to use me for arbitration, and they wanted me to just abide by whatever terms come from it. So I can't take them to court on this. When they didn't want to fight the lawsuit, they had no intention of fighting the lawsuit. And again, I once I saw that waiver, I completely lost my mind. Okay, and that's when I realized I could no longer trust the union. And by the way, I recorded every conversation with the union. Okay, right? So y'all know I have all those conversations recorded too, including saving every document attached to it.
Well, just do us a favor though, because no one could read that
Yeah.
email. Like, read the email out and read what the waiver was, because what they were doing was they were just going to get some stupid thing. Marlon was never getting his job back. He was never going to get reinstated. He was never getting back pay, and no one else was. They were going to use him to arbitrate a point, and that was going to preclude him from ever being able to sue. So his union was stopping him from ever being able to lodge a case. Think about that. Like, please read that so people understand that, because this is a bullshit talking point. I'm sorry. Obviously, he stopped communicating and refused to go forward. Why would we? Why would anyone go forward, Pat? Come on. There was no union that put up a fight against this. There was not one union that even would properly communicate against this. You guys all went silent. You guys were all, no, I'm pro-vaccine. Everybody should get the vaccine. We'll get you the vaccine. Blah, 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 blah. Disregarded fucking everything. People dropped dead. People got fucking cancer and died. People fucking had miscarriages. And everyone in the fucking union did fucking nothing. No union. Not the DEA, not the PBA, not the SBA, not the fucking cuck LBA or the cuck CEA either. They did fucking nothing.
Mom, before you read it, I just want to say, I think what's interesting, because you mentioned the Article 78, and I think most of us were not aware of what Article 78 is. I think most of us now are informed by it. But I think
and the union didn't fucking tell us what a 78 is either, right, Pat? No. Did anyone fucking tell anybody what an Article 78 was? No, nobody fucking told anybody, right? Oh, you guys are smart guys. You guys will be good. Fuck out of here. People lost their fucking livelihoods, their careers, their lives, and you motherfuckers all did nothing. I'm vaccinated.
Well, I think what's interesting about it, so after doing some research about the Article 78, I think the reason why they didn't inform anyone about the Article 78 is because typically under the research I've done is typically the Article 78s have a very short window and a very short statute of limitations. Usually it's about
90 days.
Right. Yep. 90 days to 4 months is what I found. So that, to me, I think is why they didn't want anyone to know about the Article 78s. Is because they wanted the time to pass by that you couldn't have a fight and a dog in a fight in this. That's what I think it comes down to. So I think it's really devious. It's evil. And because, again, why didn't we see a coalition be formed by the unions? Why are they not asking for discovery right now? Why didn't they educate everyone about the Article 78? Is because they wanted it, in my opinion, to go away because it was a short statute of limitations.
Yeah. Gee, I wonder why I would stop communicating with the union. When the union tells me I gotta sign, my own union, who's supposed to be protecting me and defending me, tells me I gotta sign a waiver that's beneficial to the city. Gee, I wonder why I would stop communicating with the union after that point, huh? I mean, let me just quickly go back to the email and I'll read it to you. This is from Stephen McQuaid. Okay, he is from Peter LLP. Remember, I told you Peter LLP, their parent law firm, was representing Eric Adams at that point, right? They were still representing Eric Adams. So isn't this a conflict of interest there? But anyway, the email says, it was very nice meeting you the other day at the DEA delegates meeting. I had attended 2 meetings with the DEA just prior to me leaving, right? I'm reaching out to you in connection with the above referenced matter. I'm currently drafting the request for arbitration to move this case along. I need some basic employment information from you, such as when you got on the job, when you were a detective. I don't understand why they need that. You're my union, but whatever. I said, whatever. I gave it to you. I actually gave it to him over the phone call. He called me not too long after that, right? So let me go back to the other one now. This is the email when they sent me the waiver itself. Please, Paul and Marlon. Paul is Paul DiGiacomo, right? He says, please, this again comes from Stephen McQuaid. He says, please find the OCB waiver form that is required to be submitted along with our request for arbitration in connection with the above referenced matter. Please sign the form and return it to me. It can be signed in counterparts, whatever. What I'm showing you now is the waiver itself, okay? Again, the waiver was to arbitrate this case. it was not to fight the mandate, and the union itself had all the documents I sent to Kufo. They even heard the conversation I had with Kufo, because I played it from my delegate at Intel uh, with Brian McGuire over on the other line. Okay, and by the way, all my conversations were through my delegate and Brian McGuire. Well, I could only recall maybe twice that Brian McGuire called me directly, because I think his reasoning for do that is he knew I would be recording the phone call, right? So what they would do is have my delegate call me, because they know I'm not going to record my delegate, right? But then my delegate would be like, "Hold on, I'm putting Brian McGuire on," so that way I wouldn't be able to record the conversation. It failed because once I understood what they were trying to do, I was prepared for that, right? But anyway, the point I'm trying to make here is that they didn't care about fighting the mandate, because had they cared about fighting the mandate, they would have told me immediately, "Marlon, drop an Article 78," and I would have done it. They would have done it first. In fact, had the unions all dropped Article 78s when the mandate dropped, nothing would have happened to any of y'all. None of y'all would have had to taken this shot unless you really wanted to, of your own free will, and that's the entire point here. If you want to take something that's stupid, that's on you. Okay. The problem is the government forced us to take it, and your unions all sat by silently. Your elder leadership sat by silently, even though they themselves are suffering from 9/11 illness, and they knew the city lied to them and betrayed them back then. So they sat back and let the city lie to you and betray you here again, and still they're silent about it. While now it's our generation's turn to suffer the same problems they did after 9/11 illness, when nobody would listen to them. Okay, so again, as I said before, what did they learn? What did you learn? You learned nothing, and you let the next generation suffer the consequences for it. And you let the NYPD. The NYPD will suffer this for generations, because of all the cops that took this. Okay, some of them are young cops who just got on the job. Okay, now they have like 20, or maybe now they have 15, 17 years to go. 15, 24, 14 years to go, suffering from this. What did you learn? You didn't learn anything, so don't come at me with that, Pat.
No, yeah, we absolutely didn't learn anything. It's like literally hiring a physical trainer for your wife. He fucks your wife. You get divorced. You get a new wife. You hire the same physical trainer. You're like, "Oh yeah, you know what happened? That guy fucked my wife. Oh, so what'd you do? I hired him. I hired him again. Fuck my new wife." Why? You think he would do something like that to me? Why? You think he might fuck my wife?
You already got my first wife.
Wait, you just said that the guy fucked your wife, though, and that he's a piece of shit, and that he should pay for it, and then you hired him again, and now you hang out with him with your new wife? Oh yeah, why? When I say civil servants are the dumbest people alive, that's what I mean. When I say cops are the dumbest people alive, NYPD cops, that's what I mean. There's no fucking logic there. Dude, the Article 78 thing infuriated me so much because I didn't find out about it until about 98 days past the time that I was denied. So I asked the union, I said, "Hey, look, why didn't you tell me about that?" "Oh, we didn't know." Now, complete lie, right? They obviously knew about it. It was a complete lie. They knew how to fight it. And they're like, "Well, we couldn't file all the Article 78s. I said, "Okay, but you couldn't file all the Article 78s. So why didn't you have a seminar with your attorneys that we fucking paid for, by the way? We pay for your cuck brother-in-law attorneys that suck, that should have just been cops because they're not good attorneys and they just got lucky that they fucking getting a paycheck from the union, or they are good attorneys and they're just taking the money and doing fucking nothing, and they look at it as easy work. You'll live out on Long Island, slick back hair, pinky rings. Yeah, nah, I'm going with the union, Mo. I'm going with the union." All fucking want to be wise guys, right? Everybody's a fucking tough guy. Everybody's a wise guy, right? So I said, "Why don't you have everybody come together? Why don't you have everybody come together? You hold a little seminar and you tell the guys now that are going to face this, how to file their own Article 78s. No response.
I think we should explain what Article 78 is because a lot of people don't even really know what it is.
Article 78 is a legal injunction that you're saying that the job was wrong, and I want you to look. I want a judge to see what the ruling from my job was. I want a judge to weigh in on this. That is what happened in the case of Isaac Valdez. He said that I was terminated. They violated my religious authority. The city of New York said, get out of here. The NYPD terminated me. And it's wrong. And the judge said, oh, yeah, no, that's absolutely wrong. They violated your religious liberty. You're going back to work. Isaac Valdez go back to work. Did the union help Isaac? No, the union didn't fucking help Isaac. Did Patty Lynch? Yeah, Patty. Did it fucking fake? What was the guy that we never found? The fake. He was like a mix between like a wannabe mix actor of JFK, but he had like a weird Boston accent, even though he was never from Boston, and he kind of sounded like Hoffa a little bit. He had like this persona, like he was Hoffa or JFK. Mr. President, Mr. President. Did Patty do that? No, Patty was handing out fucking lotions. What is that called? The alcohol, the hand sanitizer with his name on it. Pat J. Lynch. Patty Lynch. What did Hendry do? Nothing. He still hasn't went to Turkey to get his fucking hair done. Still won't shave his head. What'd he do? Nothing.
He won by default.
Nothing. Well, they rigged the election. That's another RICO case that should be looked into. And, you know, it's unbelievable how these elections are. But they did absolutely nothing. They didn't help anyone get an Article 78. The guys that found out about it on their own did it, won. The unions never helped them, never acknowledged them. And like I said, Isaac didn't get his time restored. He didn't get his money back. He didn't get anything. And guess what the union did? They pretended like Isaac Valdez didn't exist. They did what they did to Marlon Bethel. They did what they did to John McCarry. No, these guys are crazy. John's got a tinfoil hat. John's a white supremacist. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go to the Guardians and we're going to go to NOLA and we're going to have them say that John's a white supremacist. And then John's going to apologize and he's going to fall off and he's going to get scared. But guess what? John didn't do that. Right? And so what they start to do then, they were like, oh, let's try to ignore him again. Let's try to ignore him again. Right? So, I mean, the whole thing's a joke. Oh, and you want to talk about civil rights attorneys. Where the fuck were the civil rights attorneys? You know how Isaac Valdez went to? He went to a prominent civil rights attorney. You know what his name is? Eric Sanders. You know what Eric Sanders told Isaac Valdez? You have no case. Civil rights. Isaac, you know what it is probably, brother, if you're listening to this? Maybe it's because you're a white Hispanic and not a black Hispanic. Or maybe you are a black Hispanic and you just appear to be a white Hispanic, or you're just, you're too light-skinned. Who knows? I don't know, but it wasn't a civil rights violation then, apparently, huh? So he told him that, and I'm not just singling out Sanders here. It was every fucking civil rights attorney across New York. There are a handful of civil rights attorneys that will file this case, and the majority of them are not civil rights attorneys. They became civil rights attorneys because they got in the fight. Jimmy Wagner, Christina Martinez, Sujata Gibson, handful. And what happened when I got the Siri firm that said they would represent fired members of the NYPD for free? I asked the unions, I said, hey, look, I list all of them. I said, look, I got this union. I got this prominent law firm in New York, the Aaron Siri firm. They said they'll represent the fired employees first. They want to attack the fired, terminated employees for free. They'll work with you. You know what the unions did? They blocked me.
Yeah. A couple of those firms.
Mom, before you go, I gotta jump on this one real quick though. There's a comment here from EC5957. He says one union fought against de Blasio and won. Which one was that? Which union? I'm curious. That EC5957. You're here, brother.
Go back to my last comment when I said that cops are the stupidest people alive.
Which one?
There he is.
Sorry, Mullen. I don't want to cut you off, but dude, I want to know which union won, please, because apparently you haven't been paying attention. None of them won. They're all got their pants down in embarrassment. Go ahead, Mullen. Sorry, brother.
No, I kind of forgot my train of thought there too, Yeah, like we said, if the unions cared about any of this, they'd still be pounding the table right now because they have the sword of Damocles, right? They have the all the information they need right now to force outcomes beneficial to you guys, which include retaining your health care as it was before, as the retirees have retained theirs, or as you actually signed away it in the last contract, right? But I think they'd be able to certainly get more money for you. But again, the point is, I said earlier that money isn't the root of all the problems with NYPD attrition. Okay, but if they wanted to go down that misguided route, they have the sword of Damocles here, and instead of using it, they're still silent on it, which makes no sense at all. It doesn't make any sense. Just like them not giving us the information about Article 78 to use at the time doesn't make any sense. If I was a union boss, I would have damn sure printed. I would have a one for each one of you, and none of that shit would have happened. Okay, but they all acted like they didn't know any of this, and wanted to fight for more money instead of fighting the actual mandate itself. So again, they don't care about you, and we've seen enough signs over the last couple of years that they're working against you. How many times do the unions have to go and kiss? Did they have to go and kiss Eric Adams' ass or campaign for him to get reelected, even though Eric Adams was the guy who dropped the actual mandate, okay, who actually dropped the deadline for you to get vaxxed or get terminated. Now, keep in mind, it started under de Blasio, in which case I was suspended in November 21, but in 22 is when I was fired, okay? So the same mayor who fired me, my own union president, then runs to kiss his ass, tells you, oh, I have him on speed dial on the phone. And then when July comes around and Eric Adams has no shot of winning re-election again, we see the same kiss ass brown noser campaigning for him to get reelected, even though he
and made sure his
screwed
kids
over
didn't get
his members.
vaccinated too. Don't forget that,
Yeah.
Marlon. Don't forget he had him on speed dial, so his kids didn't have to get vaccinated. Don't worry about that.
That's important too. You know what? You know what's to me, which is I'm perturbed by, and most people can. But John, you're right. You say civil servants are stupid. Honestly, for the most part, they're either stupid or they want to be in the dark on purpose. Because, I mean, how insulting! The unions, all they talk about is money. They don't care about all the other stuff. They just think that the cops can be bought. And former Mayor Bill de Blasio proved it too, right? Throw a burger and French fries in your face, and you're going to want to get vaccinated, or then throw you $500. I mean, cops actually, it really is. If you think about it, how insulting that they sold you this. We'll give you $500 if you get vaccinated, and that's what they think of you, $500. And it wasn't $1 million; it was $500, and cops jumped at it. I mean, think about it. This is what they think of you. They throw throw $1 on the floor. What's $500 for the city? They throw $1 on the floor and you run at it. It's absolutely, to me, I'm perturbed by that. It just shows what they think of you. And also the unions that are supposed to be your brother and your family and take care of you, this is what they think of you. They don't care about all the amenities. They don't care about you. They don't care about the decisions you have to make. All they care about is what your contract is. Just care about money. That's what they think of you. You could be bought. And that's you should be perturbed by that. I am.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. I'm just infuriated. After this episode, I'm gonna go take like 350 milligrams of magnesium citrate, bring my nerves down.
I'll take a cold
Calm
shower.
me down a little bit. The mushroom coffee is not holding me down, But yeah, dude, it's honestly infuriating, dude. And like, what was the arbitration? What was the arbitration that they were gonna do for Marlon? I'll tell you what the arbitration was going to be. It was going to be, we're going to take 2.5% more. 2.5%, you give up your bodily autonomy. Great job. 2.5%, you no longer have access to reasonable accommodations, religious accommodations, or medical accommodations. What was that arbitration like? What were they looking for? What could you give away? What could you gain to give away your bodily autonomy? Nothing. Nothing. There's not an amount of money on the world that you could say, John, I'll give you $30 billion right now, but I have control over your body and you have to do everything I tell you. It's nothing. I don't even think about it. I don't even think about it. And the amount of money pushed to continue this propaganda and continue keeping people in the dark and people not asking questions is ridiculous. I could be a very, very rich man right now. All I have to do is be quiet. Could have had everything I wanted. I could have actually been back in the New York City Police Department. I don't think most of you don't know that. Most of you don't know that I was offered a high-level, high-paying job in the New York City Police Department a while back. I never publicly said that. I was offered a high-level job. You know, I wasn't going to be involved in policing. No, I was just going to have a nice little office in the middle of the city, in the middle of nowhere, and I was going to make a lot of money, and I was going to be eligible for overtime, and I was going to be a civilian employee, and I was going to have my take-home car and all that. And, you know, so the thing is, when you get close and you start pushing back at evil in this world, they'll try to buy you, dude. But are you going to take it? And I'll tell you right now, you know what I said? Fuck you. I didn't even think about it because it's not anything that I'm going to do. I'm speaking the truth here. This is wrong. I don't want to go back. I don't want to forget everything that you did to me. I don't want to forget everything you did to Marlon. I don't want to forget everything you did to everybody else. I don't want this to ever happen again. I could have easily thrown in that fake vaccine card and it would have went away. I could have easily did it. Easily did it.
You know, tell me all kidding aside, but tell me the difference. What's the difference between the vaccine mandate and human trafficking? Honestly, what is the difference? They held your passport, they held your employment and said, if you don't take this, you're not employed. That vaccine mandate was the same thing as human trafficking. Think about it. The NYPD that's supposed to be part of the fight against human trafficking, human traffic their own police department. And that might sound outlandish, but I think it's fucking true. They human trafficked their own members. Think about that. You want employment? Take this. You want money? Take this. You want to be part of this crew? Take this. This is what you have to go inject yourself today, right? You got to go take this today, take that. What's the difference between human trafficking? It's the same goddamn thing.
And they're counting on you being weak, you know, weak-willed. All right. What you're seeing on screen now is the letter that they sent to me. Let me get that off. The letter they sent to me in June 17th of 2022, right? This is the letter saying that I could come back if I take the shot, right? So these people they hope that you're going to be weak-willed and you're going to submit to them and you know, get back in line. And it had nothing to do with you know, policy and sickness, you know, and all to do with compliancy and breaking down your will to, you know. So
Yep. We cowards at the upper management of the NYPD taking advantage of the general population of the NYPD. You're damn right. Think about it. Everything, it's the upside down road. We talk about the vaccine mandate, because if you decided to go with a fake vaccine card and got caught with it, you still have a job with the NYPD. So integrity went out the window because it's just all about compliance. Are you compliant? That's all they want to know. Are you willing to do what it takes to fall in line? That's it's a damn shame. What they don't want is resistance. And John, Marlon, and myself would consider resistance. That's what they don't want. They don't want critical thinkers. They just want people they just want zombies. Yeah, no problem. Feed me. I'll take your injection. Feed me. I'll take your political bullshit. That's what they want. They want zombies. They want people that are scared. It's ironic, right? The NYPD is supposed to be, you know, full of tough men and women that go out there and stand on their own 2 feet. In fact, we learned it's weak compliance. I'm not talking about their physicality. I'm talking about their mental fortitude and their morality. This is damn sad. But it's the upper management. So you want to blame Fauci? Yeah, I get it. He's a piece of shit. But at the same token, Fauci handed them the gun, but they, rhetorically speaking, but the NYPD pulled the trigger.
No, I totally agree, bro. I totally agree. You knew it was like How many times did your boss tell you to do something that wasn't accurate and you didn't do it? You're like, nah. There's a thing called the Constitution. There's a thing called laws. There's a thing called morality. Not going to do it. So you have an easy day at Comstat. Sorry. Not putting my guys in the line of fire for that. Not doing it. Not doing it. And so they could have followed Fauci's edicts, but they also could have followed the law. And the law said that you are mandated to give religious accommodations. Mandated. And again, like I said, the religious accommodations were always unnecessary because you are already, according to DCAS guidelines, you are already being accommodated. And to go further, according to the CDC guidelines, all of you who worked throughout the entire pandemic for 2 years, or even if you didn't, and you were previously infected, you had the same level, if not greater protection than those who were vaccinated. So you never needed to do it. Never needed to do it. And what did the medical division tell me? I reached out to COVID-19 questions like Marlon asked. And I got a girl from Strategic, Erin, her name was. I forget her last name. Doesn't matter.
Erin Kruller.
Yeah, whatever her name was. Some civilian from Strategic. And I said, I'm sorry. Why do you know anything about my private medical history? Like, why are you answering this? This is COVID-19 questions in the medical division. What the hell does strategic initiatives have to do with this? I said, lose all my data. So then I knew that COVID-19 questions was bullshit. And I reached out to the medical division, who told me weeks prior not to take it because I would more than likely have an adverse side effect. And I was told that, well, they don't know how long my antibodies are going to last. And I was like, well, how long are the antibodies going to last in the COVID vaccine? Oh, we don't know. I was like, so then why can't I just keep testing until my antibodies are gone, and then we could have the conversation then? Like, you told me my levels of antibodies were way too high. I was going to have an adverse side effect. And they said, well, we can't do that. You need to take it. You need to get this in you. I was like, so I asked, I said, how many antibodies will I get? Here's my antibody exam, by the way. So if you see where your levels are at, do you see mine is all the way over to the far right? It's not like it here, you would have had antibodies. My antibodies are all the way over here. And so I said, how many antibodies will the COVID-19 vaccine give me? Oh, we don't know. I said, well, I know how many I have now, and there's way too many. And I honestly feel like screwed up from this. And I don't understand. And they couldn't answer any of my questions. I then had to go sit with a panel of doctors at NYU. I sat with a panel of doctors, and they said, John, I need you to take this. And I'm polite. I'm a nice guy. I sat down in a room with people who are much more educated than I am, people who are respected in the medical profession. And I said, yeah, no problem, doc. Just tell me why. And he said, well, I need you to get antibodies in your system that will protect you from getting COVID-19. And I said, well, doc, here's my PCR test. And I have a ton of antibodies. I was told from the NYPD medical division not to take it because more than likely I would have an adverse side effect because my antibody levels are really high. And I'm still having the effects from when I had COVID-19. And he said, yeah, but we don't know how long those are going to last. And I said, well, how long do they last in the shot? Because a lot of my friends got it and then went and took antibody exams and they have no antibodies. And he goes, I forget what he said, but he basically called me an idiot and said that, the conversation was over. And I was like, all right, doc, you obviously didn't do a good job at selling me this. Do you feel good about yourself? Do you feel like this is the right thing? And they abruptly ended the conversation, walked out of the room, and I walked out of that room. And then obviously my career was over. And, but I'm sure all of those people that I interacted with the medical division and all of those people that I interacted with in the medical profession, and all of those individuals in the New York City Police Department who all said I was an idiot and wished death upon me and my children. I don't think that they think that I was right now. I think they knew I was right then. So I mean, like, I don't, and again, I don't think, yeah, Fauci said it. Fauci put down the thing. Adams, de Blasio pushed it. Adams enforced it. Right. And that's all good. But the NYPD, FDNY, the DOE, all of these other agencies, sanitation, shout out to Danny Holkauer on here, sanitation, whatever agency you are from, it's ultimately your agency that's responsible for firing you, forcing you out of your career, murdering you, causing you harm, because they're the people that medically raped you. You were medically raped. If you put that in your body and you didn't want to do it, you were medically raped. I hate to break the news. I watch people get medically raped. I watch grown men with tears in their eyes go and do something they did not want to do. Line up in the auditorium in one police plaza and do something they did not want to do. Why? Because they knew it was wrong. Why? But they couldn't lose their career. And I understand it. And I never fault anybody for it. I don't. Because we all do things, especially cops and firemen, right? We do things for our family, right? You kick in doors and you don't know what's behind that door. You go to a 911 call and you have no fucking idea what you're walking into, right? You have no idea what you're walking into, but you do it every day and you do it multiple times a day. And so, yeah, you're like, what am I going to do? I got to do this to keep a roof over my head and food on my kid's table. And that's fine. And you know what? And I understand, but understand this. You were medically raped and you have been different ever since that happened, because they did something to you that nobody should ever do to you. So for all those people that claim that they care about sexual harassment, like Rodney Harrison, claim that he really gives a fuck about violating people. How many people did you violate during COVID?
He wanted to force his own daughter. What you want to talk about piece of shit? That's why I said, yeah, nice guy, but is he a good guy? No, because he's pushing all this woke progressive shit too. And this COVID vaccine mandate falls under woke progressiveness. So that's why when Marlon talks about the oligarchy, politicians, the elites, the religious leaders, you're absolutely right. It's the oligarchy that pushed this nonsense, this shit here right here. But going back to what we said, I think it's important that people understand what the Article 78 is, as John said. It's a mechanism that allows the cops or firemen, anyone that was put in that position as a vaccine mandate, especially for the cops. It's a mechanism that allows you to take take a case to the judge in court. And that's to me is insane. The fact that the unions never let the cops know that they could file an Article 78. How convenient that there's a 90 day to 4 month window for the statute of limitations. How convenient. The idea that they had no idea is absolutely bullshit. Because first of all, every union has their own firm assigned that they pay on an annual basis that's assigned to that union. Every union has a firm. So they could have asked their attorneys, if they didn't know, let's pretend they didn't know. They could have asked their attorneys that they hire and they pay every year, is there anything our cops could do to stop this? Or is there any way they could fight? And then they would have said, well, they could file Article 78s. Absolutely ridiculous. And don't say that you couldn't file for everyone. It could have been one template and you put John's name, you do another one, you put Ball's name. That is bullshit. To say that they didn't know about an Article 78, that is where I'm perturbed. That is a complete lie. Every one of them has a firm. So every union right now, you should fire every firm that you have right now. Because if that firm didn't tell you about Article 78s, why are they still on your payroll? You're the SBA and you have the Quint firm, you should fire them. The LBA, you have your firm also, you should fire them too. They should have told you about Article 78. Don't tell me you didn't know. And if you didn't know, then you should fire them today.
Yeah, it's true. So the lady that you just mentioned, John, is the lady in the middle there. I don't know if you guys could see. You see the lady wearing the maroon colored suit in the middle? That is Erin Kruller, and Erin Kruller worked in strategic initiatives. She was the people that people like Corey and the leaders like Corey and Rodney Harrison and Dermot Shea were listening to, right, during this pandemic. Policy came from strategic initiatives and then was peppered into the other units like diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And by the way, Tanya Meisenholder originally came from this bureau too. So it's all connected to this bureau. And by the way, this lady, after the PD, she joined Corey at the University of Chicago Crime Lab. So again, isn't it awfully coincidental that all these people are these left-wing people keep ending up at the same place, and it's pretty interesting that you have guys who scream at the top of their lungs about protecting membership, about protecting cops, and about listening to cops. I listened to another Kenneth Corey interview on a podcast where he was talking about listening to cops, and I thought, you know what? Did you listen to cops during the scamdemic? No, you didn't. You bullshitter, right? But this is the lady. See, here she is again in the glasses with the maroon dress. They're all leftists. These are people that have pronouns in front of their names, in front of their titles on the internet, right? And these are the guys. These are the women who are dictating the direction of policing in America. Before I go, this is
leftist
sorry.
white women, Marlon. Those are the bosses. Leftist white women.
It's true. It's true. And this is the letter again, guys. I don't know if you can see it now. I try to blow it up a little bit. Maybe I need to increase it a little bit more. But this lady also, Marissa, she also worked with him. Okay. They all communicated with each other during the scamdemic. Okay. But
yeah, I want to see their vaccination cards.
Let's get to the super chats, but before we do, let's just give a special shout out to who they have. I think the NYPD learned a little because they have a special lieutenant working in the medical division now, Lieutenant Raju, right? Is that how we say it? He's an actor, a playwright. He's wrote a book on crime, even though he's never fought any of it in his entire career. And he says John showing off his lab results with high antibody levels after getting sick is not a badge of honor you think it is. It is the psychological equivalent of showing off a charred house and saying, look how great my smoke detectors are. They went off loudly while my living room was actively on fire. So, Juju, I was infected prior to the mandate. Because I was out on the street. Probably you were working from home because you were so scared and you were writing your next crime novel that nobody bought. And you were saying how you were the smartest cop in the NYPD with 7 degrees, and yet you're sitting here solely obsessed. So I was prior to the mandate because I was out in the street doing work while you weren't, right? I wasn't hiding in my house, right? Because I was a young, healthy male. And so like basically everyone in America or every first responder in America, I contracted COVID-19 prior to the mandate coming in place. So I had the protection, Juju. So I guess maybe the medical division is right where it was in 2021 when the mandate came in place, because you got this loser in charge of it. And if you could just show us your book sales, because I'm just really curious who bought that crime novel. And, I saw all your great modeling work too. I forgot that you were a model, but it looked like you got a lot real chunky lately. So,
Lieutenant Ragu.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Ragu.
So wait, Juju is at medical division now?
Oh, yeah. He's at the medical division. Yeah. He's a lieutenant. How do you think he has time to look at the fucking podcast all day?
Yeah. He must be working with Huge Fat Loser. Him and Huge Fat Loser, they must be buddied up together.
Yeah, so Raju, you should get with the lawyer that named you in a different lawsuit. You guys should drop a lawsuit for naming you in here,
I'm just curious.
Discovery, bro.
I'm just curious, Juju. Who do you masturbate mostly to? John, me, Marlon? Who? I'm just curious because I know he does. He definitely masturbates to us, but who fancies you most? I'm curious.
Kufo, Joseph Kufo, I think is your answer. How appropriate. He's probably getting overtime to watch us now. It's probably part of his daily activities that he watches.
Yeah, I think he masturbates during his break to the Finest Unfiltered. It's okay, Juju. I get it. I know.
All right. Let's do this because we're heading up on 3 hours. Let's hit the super chats.
Fucking nuts.
Anthony, thank you for coming here today, brother. We appreciate you always being here. It says real talk today. Keep keeping us informed. Yeah, this was a hard one. I'm not gonna lie. I'm fucking still pretty upset about this shit. So like I said, I'm gonna go take my 350 milligrams of I'll dose it out two parts of the day, but I need my magnesium. I gotta go eat something and go sit in the sun for a little while. Go work out.
Well, John, I knew you were going to be on Supercharged today. Like, I know once you start talking about this, that's why, I was like, let him go, let him have his moment today, because this is. I knew this was going to get you supercharged. Anyway, thank you for the coffee and donuts, brother. We appreciate it.
I went to a diner yesterday over here. It was like Copland, and they had the whole Fauci thing on Fox, and they just started talking to me, and I was like, I thought I was going to pull a libido in the diner and just drop. I didn't even eat my dinner. I didn't even eat my breakfast. I just bounced. I was like, I can't have it. I was like, I can't even talk about this anymore. And then here I am today. Here we are.
John, you can't always convince people that the devil's real. You just can't. Some people just want to live in their own bubbles.
No, but the thing is, like, I don't even try to. Like, I don't. But like, people come at me with it consistently, dude. Well, yo, where in the Bible does it say you can't take a shot, Mo? Where does it say it, Mo? People come at me every week with it, bro. It's like, it's the most annoying thing in the world. It's like, dude, leave me alone. Like, you don't agree with me? Fine. But you're trying to prove your bullshit to me. It's like, and then so I wind up getting in these conversations, It's fucking bullshit. Anyway,
Kai Zavon says Juju likes John's bald head. I think Juju likes my beard. I think he's a little turned on by that. I think so.
I'll tell you, Juju, I don't think likes us as much as the union heads. They all like sniffing the mayor's balls. They love sniffing de Blasio's balls. They love sniffing Eric Adams' balls. And now they love sniffing Zohran Mamdani's balls. And guess what? Brandon Johnson's looking for someone to lead his police department. How many cowardly, self-castrated NYPD executives you think went to Chicago to go sniff Brandon Johnson's balls? No, I could be a progressive. No, I love violence interventions. No, yeah, I love all that. Yeah, I love DEI. Yeah, I hate white people.
I'm curious if the Woke Room podcast was ever sent to Brandon Johnson. I'm sure. I'm sure Roddy. I'm sure Roddy would relocate to the Windy City. I'm sure.
He went from I just endorsed part of Mamdani's public safety plan to no, I endorsed it all. Right?
Yeah.
I believe in everything.
Yeah, it's like saying I didn't eat my meal today. I just swallowed it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna go sniff Brandon Johnson's balls in Chicago this weekend. Yeah. I'm gonna move my whole family so that they could call me chief again.
You think Lieutenant Ragu and Huge Fat Loser, you think they work out together? They probably don't.
I don't think Ragu works out at all. I think he's probably eating something right now. He's watching us. Probably picking up some little snacks. Yeah. Cobb says, a fearful population is easy to control. Scamdemic 101. Every seasonal flu is a pandemic, global outbreak of infectious disease. The fact they use the word to cause panic and alarm says it all. Fear porn, baby. Fear porn.
No, he's right. He's right. Spot on. It really is. I mean, we see it throughout history, and this was the ultimate litmus test, though. And we failed.
Naked Coffee Channel, $10. He says 30% women and ex-traffic agents that are vaxxed and boosted. Zero crime equals zero crime. Well, they got 3,000 guns off the street,
Yeah.
I mean, they were falling out of people's pockets, but don't worry about that,
He must be watching Tanya Meisenholder.
He says, kidding, of course. I need lost time up front today. God bless, and thanks for the integrity, gents. Appreciate you.
Thank you for the coffee and donuts, bro.
Still my favorite name out here. Love coffee and naked women. Should make it Naked Women Coffee Channel.
I love it.
Yeah.
Not all women should be naked. There's some that,
Oh yeah, I like them all. Different seasons, bro.
Hey, listen.
Big girls need love too, right? Seasons. That's why I lived in New York for so long. That's why
big girls need love too.
You don't gotta take one for the team. You just gotta take one for your team. I gotta get myself in trouble here today. It's told to you so back when. He says cops with asthma stood home for months. Yep. And it was funny, and then the job told them oh, put this stuff in. And then if they didn't know anyone, they try to fire them. They were like, oh, you guys got pre-existing conditions. We don't want you anymore. But if they knew someone, they kept staying home. They never had to re-report.
Dude, so I'm telling you, if you look at the matrix, it's equivalent to what happened during the mandate. If you're a general population, you get the aggravating factors. If you're part of tier 2, you get the mitigating factors. Same thing happened with the vaccine mandate. You're general population, you're Marlon Bethel. You know.
Well, Mom showed you the chart. Like he showed us all the chart, how the kingdoms ruled, like where the plebs stay, you know, where they all live, and there's all different rules depending on where you have to live. You know, the map, the kingdom map. Yeah.
Don't speak about Richard Taylor. He's gonna get upset.
It's told to you so back when. Mary King, Kenneth Perez, Mike Milkowski, all guilty. You know, it's funny. I put out a post about all of them during Isaac Valdez's when Isaac Valdez's discovery hearings went public. I had put all of them out. The one I did about Mary King, I thought was pretty funny because I put that out, and then that same day, Tish put out a post praising Mary King, almost like a F you, you know? Like I was like, oh, whatever. And now she's promoted. I think she's a chief now and I think Kenneth Perez went up. Kenneth Perez was probably, I think he was going to break if you read those hearings. We should really go through them one day. We should really go through those in depth because I think he was probably the most honest on the stand. The rest of them were all blatant liars and hiding things and would not answer questions and were being deceptive. But I think Perez was going to break on the stand. I think he was the most honest. Not going to say he was totally honest, but he was the most honest. Yeah.
It sounds like an NYPD Sarge exam. Which one is most honest?
Yeah.
Least accurate.
He was the most truthful, even though he was still a fucking liar. You know?
Yeah, but if you're not a member of the NYPD, that's how these tests go. It's never like which one's right, it's which one's most correct.
Yeah. So a 1-year rookie, P.O. Marmoley, was the investigator for Valdez and for a lot of other people. And like I said, he didn't investigate anything. He was never trained in equal opportunity law, and he actually never looked at anything. He just signed off that he was an investigator, but he testified under oath that they just handed him a piece of paper and he signed off on all that. Basically, totally admitted to perjury. And, is
Mama Luke still on the job?
Yeah, he's got no time on the job. Yeah, he's a young kid. He's in a 2-3 precinct.
What a coincidence. How convenient that they picked a rookie. Hey, Mama Luke, they used you, brother.
Do this. Do this, Mom. Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Mom. Don't worry about it. Don't be like one of these anti-vaxxer kids, all right?
At least give him a shield.
I'm pro-COVID vaccine, not like that Macari guy, Don't listen to that guy, Mom, Going fucking patch hog this weekend out on the boat, Mo.
Vaccines are good.
Oh, he's a deputy chief too. Oh, you got promoted. Look at you, guy.
Congratulations.
Look at that. That is a star-studded career right there. The Support Services Bureau Chief, Strategic Initiative Bureau, OMAP, Department of Equity and Inclusion, Office of Chief of Community Affairs.
He really hit those streets, huh?
Yeah.
There's a piece.
Hey, I want if somebody knows out there if he was the guy who was captain of the 8-1 around like 2010. No, not the 8-1, the 8-4 around 2010. I had like a jerk off captain. I think his last name was Perez. Come and talk to me and my partner about staying out in the car when it was like freezing outside. Yeah. So I've always wanted.
He's probably like Adams hiding in the fucking. He's probably a transit cop hiding in the transit thing. Fuck out here with these guys.
Hey,
but Perez is a common name, dude. I know like 15 of them on the job. Like,
that's why I say I'm not sure if it was him. He was a captain back then. So
where is John Shell in this? John Shell always wants to shit on your career, John, for being in building maintenance. But look at this guy. This guy never saw the outside. He was always
I don't even care about like John Shell. First of all, I have more college than John Shell. And secondly, I say just compare me to Eric Adams and then let me know what you think. Like who is the better cop? And he'll never do it. Right? Obviously. Because Eric Adams was the best crime fighter ever.
Look at this guy's career, man. This guy was never out in the cold, never out in the heat. Look at this.
Well, to be fair though, we don't know his prior thing, but like his time in executive were all spent in woke bullshit.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's been gobbling that shit up for a long time already.
And like, as opposed to like a guy like LePetri, who in executive ranks, he commanded commands. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jamie Reagan's asking, what did Perez do? He was involved in the scamdemic, Jamie, and his deposition is very bad. we should really do an episode on it just to show you guys how much bullshit it was and how much
It'll
he didn't
literally
know.
be like a 4-part episode, dude. Like honestly, because
Yeah.
I could just go on one page of that deposition and there's just so much there. But we should do it. We should do it. I'm down to do it because it's unbelievable. Maybe we could even get Isaac Valdez on now that he's retired to talk about it. He can narrate for us.
Absolutely. Once you see that, you wonder how did this guy make deputy chief? You know. But yeah, it happened.
I just want to do Tyson. I want to play Tanya Meisenholder and read her when she gets it. Like, yes, it wasn't me. It was City Hall.
I want to be Rodney Harrison. I want to be Rodney. Yeah, you know, when I was young,
he wasn't there. He just cared. I
want to be Rodney Harrison. That's what I want to do. When I was young, you know, I found myself in a position like Daniel Pantaleo, but my perp didn't die.
Do it.
So I became
you gotta do the Urkel voice, though.
Yeah.
I had to choke someone much bigger than me, and thank God he didn't die. So I became the chief of department, and I hope to one day be commissioner for Zoe Ramadan.
Or Brandon Johnson. Or anybody that'll take me.
Don't worry. If you tell me to inject my daughter, I will.
Anything for you. Nolan with a big $500. See, Nolan, you're not so bad, bro. You know, thank you, brother. We appreciate it.
I like Nolan, man.
I like Nolan too. He just has like a love-hate relationship with me though. Like one day he likes me, next day he hates me.
Yeah, you guys.
Next day he associates me with people that I don't associate with. I don't know what the hell it is. Like,
and Nolan, it's not because of the money, man. I like you, brother.
No, it might be about the money for me. No, I think he's funny. Look, I think he's a funny guy. I do.
He's actually pretty smart. Yeah.
He's a funny guy. You know.
Yeah. He is one of our most loyal viewers, so we always thank him.
I like him way better than Huge Fat Loser.
He's always here. You know, he's always here. He comments. He uses his own name. I got no hard feelings.
That's true.
Even when we don't agree. You know, same thing with Pat Donahue. I love Pat Donahue, even when we don't agree.
And Nolan FaceTimes with his own face.
Yeah.
Respect for that, because when that pussy ass sergeant I tried to FaceTime him when he was prank calling me, the one that threatened me and John, he wouldn't answer those FaceTime calls. So, Nolan, shout out to you, brother.
The Finest 25 says, good morning, my friends. Stay safe. Stay smart. All right, people. Those were all the super chats there. We appreciate it. You know, make sure you do us a friend. Support our partners over at Fauci. Scan the code below or go download the app. Use our code Finest to get $10 when you trade 10. I think, I think it was a hard-hitting episode. I'm sorry if I offended anyone. Not really, but I'm willing to have the conversation. You know, I'm willing to have the conversation. So are any of us. You know, so is Marlon or Eric. And I think that's mainly important. I would just hate to see something like this happen again. And honestly, I continue to say it. I think we're in a worse position now than we were prior to that mandate coming in place. I think all the things are set up to that they'll just steamroll over everything. You have no unions, you have no representation, and I think there's enough here that we could stop that. You know, we could go back to what this nation was founded on, and we could restore the rights of employees across New York City and across this country. I don't think it's a hard thing. You know, that they're literally sending out apologies, promoting giving back pay to federal employees as we speak. So the same should be happening for New York City employees. And those of you that were harmed, like I said, I don't think that money could ever get you back from, you know, the health they stole from you or a life they stole from you. But it'll teach them a lesson to never do that again. They got money for every other stupid thing. They could fucking, they could pay you off too for what they did. So, yeah. And for anybody struggling with anything, you know, we're always here to talk. You know, don't be shy. Just don't not do nothing about it. Don't let yourself get into a slump. If you feel yourself slipping, if you feel you're not doing well, you're sitting in bed, you're down, all that, go talk to someone. Therapy is nothing wrong with it. But like I said, I think for me, the thing that keeps me sane is I make sure I sleep at night now. I make sure I eat right. I make sure I work out every day. And then I try to detach from all this bullshit for at least, 5-6 hours a day and focus on my family, my kids, and my future aspirations and all that. So, just hope everybody out there is doing well. And, and that includes the people that we disagree with. It is what it is. I get a little emotional at times. Can't help it. And I appreciate everybody. So, yeah. guys got anything before we run?
Yeah, I just want to say, so I think what's important, one thing I've learned by this, we talked about 9/11, and I think that what we learned from 9/11 and from the COVID vaccine mandate with the NYPD, and talking about, is it Fauci, the NYPD? I think we learned that there were different health issues, different problems that emanated from 9/11 and emanated from COVID. But I think we learned one thing that's really important, is the enemy was the same. It's the enemy within. It's the internal pressures of the NYPD that I think have been more detrimental to people's mental health and physical health than anything else. So I think that's ultimately what we discovered, that the enemy within is far worse. And that enemy within is the upper management of the NYPD that is weak, cowardice, pandering to politicians, self-promoting, self-devotion, and paving the way for their offspring. That's the biggest enemy. That's why we need important leadership. We often talk about that. It comes up on every podcast when we talk about this network on social media. Leadership is so important. And we see, whether we talk about 9/11 or we talk about now, I think it just shows how important leadership is. And those internal pressures of the NYPD, I think, are so detrimental. And we've showed you that today. So with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. 3 hours and 4 minutes into it. Thank you for rocking with us. We appreciate it. You guys did a hell of a job, you and Marlon, today. I mean, I know this is a very soft subject, but we have to stay on top of this. And I think whether it's 5 years from now, another 20 years, we can never let this go. They say, right, forgive and forget. I think we can forgive, but never forget.
Yeah. Great point. It's all connected, It's all part of the same old re-engineering of policing in America. Okay, it's all connected to progressivism and compliancy, and if they have it their way, we'll be in a neo-feudalistic socialist society, and that's what we have to do our best to prevent from happening again. And if there are those of you who are upset with what we said about 9/11, just sit down and think for a second. What are you upset at? Okay, they essentially did the same thing to us twice. Okay, to the job twice. They knew better and they lied to you when they could have done things to mitigate your health. And we have to do what we can to prevent this from happening a third time again. Okay, like I said before, I said a while ago, the sickness that's going to come from this is going to be my generation's 9/11 illness. Okay, while the older generation suffered from the after effects of the air down there, this generation is going to suffer from the adverse consequences of having to take the vax, especially this generation. Okay, so we have to speak out about this. But thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you spending your morning with us, and we hope that you have a great day and stay safe and alert. Oh, and by the way, I spotted this on LinkedIn. Doesn't this just tell you everything you need to know about where things are going? Look,
Who's the one in the yellow shoes, and who's the other one to the right of Corey?
Well, I don't know who these are. All of them are, but they all work in the crime lab with Corey.
All right, man. We should go to the crime lab one day and have like several debates.
Yeah,
I want to debate the one next to Corey.
Hey, opposition meets opportunity, John.
I'm only kidding.
Are they having a pajama party or something?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Like, am I supposed to take people seriously like this? Could we take people seriously? Like, you're grown adults having a pajama party, and what are we doing? Yeah.
Man, I thought in New York you wouldn't be, caught dead walking outside your pajamas. Come on, it's absolutely ridiculous.
I just love how much I offend liberal white women. It's the funniest shit ever. Like they hate my existence. Like they already hate me before I even open my mouth. Like they just see me and they're like, so funny.
Yeah.
Well, I always say opposition meets opportunity. So
Pat, we would never ban you, Pat. I'm glad you got a haircut. We would never ban you. We love you. It is what it is. Bro.
Pat needed a timeout today.
He left. Right, he was like, fuck these guys.
We love you. Hey, Pat, we love you, brother. Pat was the resistance today. Go figure.
Just got a little emotional,
Right now, he's throwing darts at us.
Yeah. Banned them. Well, maybe you want to talk about being banned, Pat, because you've been getting banned a lot. But that's another day, another time. Yeah, another story.
Don't worry,
But
Pat.
yeah.
Scott will give you a hug. Scott Monroe.
But all right, people. So thanks everybody for joining this morning. We had about 400 people on here. We appreciate you guys. Just do us a favor, like, share, subscribe. Those of you that wherever you're watching or listening, if you listen to this later on, if you could like this channel, if you could subscribe to the channel, if you could hit the hype button, we'd appreciate it. If you're on any of our audio platforms, please do us a favor, leave us a review, hit that 5-star review. Helps move us up in the algorithm, helps to fund this. This is a self-funded podcast, right? Trying to work on getting even bigger sponsors. We keep getting bigger sponsors. We're excited about our partners over at Fauci, but we want to keep going, right? We want to be able to do this, but it is an expensive hobby. It costs us a lot of money.
Looks like Nolan's become a sponsor too.
Yeah. Nolan, that's sponsored by Detective Nolan.
Sponsored by Detective Nolan, who talks about Stanley.
But it is an expensive hobby, and it's time consuming, it's energy draining. And having this conversation today probably took a couple of years off my life. So
True.
It's only right. It's only right. All the work we put into it, we're trying to build it bigger. And I think we are a free and fair media platform. Yes, we have biased opinions like everyone else. We're human, but at least we allow the opposing opinions on here, unlike other media networks. So, yeah, appreciate you guys. All right. Finest Unfiltered, baby. We'll be back at you. See you. Oh, last thing. Check in tonight. Executive Perspective. Ron Layson, Rob Lukash. They're going to be on. They're going to be talking about Mondani's wife's trip to Syria and all that and how it's supposedly banned now. We'll definitely talk about that on Friday. We'll bring that in. And so, yeah, check them out. And make sure you join us again, 5:05 p.m. Eastern time. Jump back on the Finest Unfiltered.
15:05, John.
Yeah. It's been a long one, bro. It's been a long one.
All right, Finest Unfiltered, baby. See you guys.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?